or a publication in that particular area or a particular problem. So we call this as RFPs, request for problems. So that is one innovation we are doing, and we really want to explore, if there are some problems that are there which institutions can solve. We really want this to be like a internship experience for students as they are studying, as they are engaged with their academia. The second innovation we really are interested, which we will be talking to many of you, is the industry mentorship program. Now, this is again a very unique thing. We have faculty mentorship program, but there is always a gap between curriculum, what is being taught, and what is being put to use, that is practice. So the only way you can bring both the curriculum and the practice together is having a person from the industry to give a kind of an hour mentorship program in a month to understand what you're studying, is it relevant, or what could be the practice-based courses that you're actually missing out studying. So these are one or two innovations we are doing, and the extended conversation I intend to have during the break. But the idea is we are here to bring our innovations to the industry, and we hope that these innovations, small steps that we take, could be more meaningful, and that can help both the students to upskill themselves and also make them more relevant when they actually walk into industry and walk into workspace. With this, I really want to invite the guest to please come and take the dais. Let me first invite and extend a very warm welcome to our chief guest and guest of honor today, Mr. Arindam Banerjee. Please, he is our Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Wells Fargo. We also have Chief Guest Mr. Balaji Kumar, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer from Sonata Software. May I request him to please come and take the stage. We also have Mr. Suresh Betavandu, who is the Chief People Officer from Mindtree. May I also request him to please come and take the stage. And we also have our own Professor of Eminence and Dr. Sanjeev Pisani. I think he'll be here at any moment. So as our Registrar, Professor W. Sridhar Patnaik. May I request Balaji Kumar to please come and take the stage. Without any further delay, may I request Soumya to come and take this event further. Can you quickly briefly introduce and just a short change in program. Mr. Arindam Banerjee will be speaking first. He has an odd stop, so we will accordingly adjust the program. Thanks. Soumya.
I would like to thank everybody for joining us, and without any further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Arindam Banerjee, Managing Director for Wells Fargo, to please come on the dais and deliver his keynote speech for today. Thank you so much for coming today, sir.
Okay, evening rather, and so I represent Wells Fargo, and I'll just keep it to maybe 10 minutes, and then if there are questions, a couple of questions. If not, I will step away. My apologies in advance, because I do have a key meeting to go to. So in terms of the topic of this session around upskill and upscale, it's interesting because we've also been through an era of the pandemic, and which has completely changed the consumer behavior across the world, right? So and every day you find out very different perspectives in that perspective. So, you see the published data which says that the industry that I belong to in banking, digital adoption of clients went up from something like 35 to 40% to close to 90%. It's probably back down again to about 65, 70%. But digital channels in terms of how you transact with banks is becoming more and more predominant as a part of the business model, and definitely a far greater adoption in the younger age population. So that's something which one has to keep into account. The second is that banks like ours, which like many sort of, if you want to call them legacy financial institutions, they are generation banks, i.e. they are catering for a segment starting from student loans to doing estate planning when you die, right? So the life cycle of a customer could be anything between 50 to 70 years in terms of the relationships that you need to build with your customer. And that life cycle has to adapt to the technologies which that generation is used to transacting, right? So we would find it very difficult to say that those 5,000 branches that we have in the US shouldn't be there anymore because we are all digital. That won't happen because that big client segment which likes to come to the community bank, which likes to talk to the branch manager as a senior person in the community, isn't going to stop coming. They're coming to build a relationship, they're coming for an experience. So you take the digital ask, you take the fact that you have to cater to multiple generations, and then you see that, okay, what are the trends that you're seeing, right? I'll give you a few more trends which one should be aware of. So if you take the student loan market, right? Traditionally, if you look at, say, Indian students who are traveling from here to Canada, US, Australia, wherever, right? Their funding is basically guaranteed by their parents, right? And they're obtaining it from that perspective. Now, as you move forward, what you are seeing increasingly, and there are plenty of sort of fintechs which have now got into the space, where the financing of a student loan is based on the future earning potential of the student. And that completely changes the game in how you evaluate a potential client looking at them. If you look at this segment and the tie-ups between different international banks, so I'll give you an example. One of our largest banks, ICICI Bank, and a Canadian bank like Royal Bank of Canada, right? They are basically shifting clients from one continent to another continent. So the ICICI youth client in India transposes to Canada, becomes a RBC client, and that relationship continues. So when we talk of the world as it is going to be in 20, 30 years, you know, the migrant population of the world is going to go up from anything from 30% today to closer to 60 to 65%. And that therefore the connectivity is going to have to be very, very seamless and digital in how we move money between different countries and continents, and not the extensive processes that we adopt today. So many of the trends that you see in terms of UPI being adopted internationally, or Zelle as a product in the US, or many of the fintech products in Singapore, these are aligned towards that. So firstly, that's the key thing in making sure that today's professionals, as they come into the industry, that they're able to capture the market trends and the future trends that are there, right? And you have to play that. Most businesses will have to service multiple segments. Second driver is the more common upskill kind of a thing, which is that you can't do without some level of technology, digital, analytic skills anymore, right? The students coming out today are digitally native. They have perfect capabilities to be piecing together different pieces of technology to give the solutions that they need. And you as an organization would have to be able to use that potential. If you bring someone on board today and you expect them to work on process and workflows which are paper-based or historic process flows, they're going to get bored very, very fast, right? So one has to make sure that the new generation coming in is given an environment in which they can thrive, which allows them to explore the, not rudimentary, but almost necessary skills and technology what they have already gathered, right? how does somebody who has already done a lot of analytics through the universities actually come in and build the ability to do insights, right? Because there's a difference between analytics and insight capability, right? How do you graduate them? So that continuous learning path, right, has now not just got a business angle to it, equally it has an angle around the technical adoption of new technologies that it is now every student, every worker, every professional needs to think of, and companies to operate in the future will have to provide this as part of their ecosystem, a constant upskilling, right? It is not a nice to do L&D exercise, but it's for the person's own future, etc. Third point I will make is somewhat more, I would say, debatable, right, which is the concept of working from home, remote working, and returning to office, and all of that, right? And I am old school, right, so let's make myself very clear there. And the reason I say that is I think after the age of 26, there is no job, whether internally or externally, I have got without a network being the connect, right? So if you think you're going to sit at home and build a network to progress your career, that's not going to happen, right? Second is the first 5 to 10 years of your career has a lot around mentorship and apprenticeship, right? These don't come necessarily from, the electronic training media which you get, or they don't necessarily come from your manager for sure, right? All the training and mentorship that you get is for the 8 people who sit around you, right? Whose shoulders you're tapping day in and day out when you have a problem. And these become extremely key in the early parts of their career. So an advice I give most guys who come into Wells Fargo nowadays is that do it for yourself. You don't realize the damage you're going to do for yourself for the long term by cutting yourself out from the rest of your colleagues in a remote working fashion, right? So for your own self, this is really important in a complex business environment that you build the network and you build the ability to conduct an apprenticeship under somebody who's had experience in that space, etc. So that's the third point I'll make. And then finally on upscaling, that is quite interesting because particularly the industry that I am in, which is dealing and is thriving in a much larger economy, which is the United States. And when you hire somebody in moving money and you're explaining to them that actually every day the business moves about $1.5 trillion on an average. There are days they move $3 or $4 trillion, right? Now these are massive sums of money, right? You have to start getting used to that scale and environment. If you look at the people and the environments and the transactions that there are millions of transactions. You have to sort by way of technology. You can't do things manually anymore, right? So I think upscaling has got a huge technology component to it, which needs to fit into your learning, but equally it has an element of confidence, right, that an individual needs to have, right? When a transaction shows up in front of a 24-year-old to say that you need to process this money movement of $900 million, you can't be shaken up, right? Because you will have that kind of a transaction every other day. Right? So I think upscaling in a way is a combination of adoption of technology, very, very strong risk and control perspectives that you gather on your job, and finally the fact that you need the confidence to deal with the numbers that you start seeing, because you're dealing with a much larger economy. Even in India, I mean, if you look at, UPI as an example, and transactions and rupees, again, point around where markets are changing. I was reading a very interesting article today where, the industry which has lost the most from UPI adoption is actually the 2 rupee and 5 rupee toffee, chocolate, and pan masala market, right? Because that was what was given out as change, at least for the last 5-6 years. So it's like two unrelated industries, but a massive impact, delta impact to one. So just to close it out, understand the market movements, upskill yourself from a tech perspective, digital skills, analytic skills on a continuous process, be a global player at scale, and adopt yourself to a very different economic environment. With that, I'll stop. I don't know what the process is. Happy to take any questions, and if there are any.
Hi sir, I'm Chirag from Nokia. I'm a software developer. The question was that you talked about the market trends in the industry.
Thank you. Yeah, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, so you talked about the market trends in the industry, and what my question is that what is the right path to take when these trends are disrupted by external factors such as the pandemic?
Such as the pandemic.
Yeah, for example. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, a pandemic at the end of it in almost in every industry is actually growing the market, right? It has gone through a dip, but in another year, you will see it having returned back to pre-pandemic levels and more, right?
Yeah.
Today, you can't get flight tickets. You won't see an empty seat in a restaurant. So there is a whole different segment of digital adoption which has increased the size of the pie itself. So I look at the pandemic not just as a bonanza for the medical industry, but there are a lot of industries which are gaining out of it because it has improved the digital adoption and therefore the scalability.
Thank you.
I had one question.
One is the disruption, but the other one, when you're talking about upskill to upscale, you're mentioning that whenever there's a pandemic, there will always be a disruption, and then you're looking for new skills. But what happens when, in terms of technology itself, there's disruption, right? We were used to a currency, you had crypto, right? The understanding and the knowledge, and I think very few people even have how to regulate the crypto. But how do you see the future going? What do you think the new age universities, should train students? Is it okay? I was looking at in short story where our usage of cash to bank to digital, how it got changed in last 20 years, and you can only see a story there that what in terms of digital, what we think it is, may even change in next 3-4 years with the disruption of technology that is actually taking place. How should the student, position themselves with this change? Because that change is very dynamic and that change is so unpredictable.
No, I completely agree with you, and I think it's not just the student. For those who've started working and are building their careers and the middle senior management, this is a much bigger problem, actually, because it is impossible today to predict beyond a 3-year window, right? I mean, you're lucky if you can get to 3 years in terms of how the market is behaving, what are the products which will be adopted, etc. So, entire strategic planning process, in my career, as I've seen it going from a 10-year strategy to a 5-year strategy to a rolling strategy of an annual year, right? So it's a constant relook around your strategy that you have to do, and obviously predict into the future in which that is going. Now the disruption which students need to be ready, and this is not just students, as I said, it's everybody in the industry as well, is that adoption of change cycle has to be much, much faster, right? We saw the industry change once every 10 years. In the last 10 years, I would argue you're seeing it change once every 3 years, right? faster adoption of products is part of the game. So it is a much more dynamic environment today, and you have to adopt.
Okay, any further question? Yes.
Thanks, Arindam. We just spoke about crypto. Is crypto the biggest, I just want your views, just a view. Crypto the biggest threat to traditional banks, or banks the biggest threat to crypto?
Okay, I'll give my personal view here, right? And I'll distinguish between cryptocurrency and blockchain, right? Blockchain technology absolutely has a huge amount of future potential use across a wide swathe of industries which rely on trust, right? So it's not yet got off to the level it should have, but because I personally think this crypto thing is a distraction, right? If people get out of crypto and that thinking, blockchain technology adoption will be much faster. Crypto itself will never succeed in the formal government finance-driven environment anywhere in the world which we have. If this whole world turns into a smuggler's market and a hawala trade, then yes, crypto has a potential. But I don't think any government in the world will ever allow that, because control on finance, the public finance, is quite key, right? That's my view. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sir. Thank you. We will continue with the program. Arindam, you have a hard stop, right? Yeah. May I quickly request Apsani and Sridhar, our registrar and our advisor to Vice Chancellor, to honor Arindam. He has a quick stop and he has to move for a meeting. So after that, we continue with the program, the inaugural session. Thank you. May I request Dr. Sani and Sridhar to honor?
So these are the 12 schools we have, and these are the colors of the schools. And your name is, and I don't know whether you can use it in Bangalore, but whenever you come to campus, please bring this around in winters. We don't want to tell that over there. Upskills to upscale. They don't want to put reskill. Thank you. Thank you for coming. So nice of you.
May I request Soumya to start the program and start as per the schedule here.
Thank you so much for giving us extra time despite your hard stop, sir. And thank you so much for your words. Really, I'm sure everybody gained a lot of insight. And I would now like to invite our dear Registrar, Sir, Professor Patnaik, to please come and deliver the welcome address for the conclave and begin it. Thank you so much for coming, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soumya. Good evening. So it's indeed a great pleasure and a privilege for me to be here with all of you this evening, and that too on a Friday weekend, along with my distinguished colleague, Professor Dr. Sahani, who is a member of the governing body and advisor to the Vice Chancellor, and my other colleagues, Professor Padmanabha Ramanujam, who is the Dean of Academic Governance and Student Life, and our Senior Director Human Resources, Mr. Jeetu Mishra, and our Deputy Director Human Resources and Associate Professor, Dr. Jeevandeep Sehgal, and Professor Dr. Tanushri Sharma, who is a professor at the Jindal Global Business School and Director of our Center for Learning, Innovation and Pedagogy. Well, We are indeed so very grateful to all the distinguished panelists, and first of all, I plead ardent apologies for any delay on our part, which occurred due to certain other reasons which were beyond our control. But we are so grateful to Mr. Balaji Kumar, Mr. Arindam, and also Mr. Suresh for having accepted our invite. And we are also thankful to all the distinguished panelists who are going to be part of the two panels this evening, Mr. Aditya Singh, Mr. Praveen Kamath Kumbla, Mr. Suresh Rangarajan, Mr. Vishwas Mudagal, Mr. Vishwanath Raju, Mr. Mahesh Srinivasan, Ms. Asha Narayanan, Mr. Rajiv Vellur, Mr. Sandeep Mehta, Mr. Shahjai Jacob, and Mr. Thiru Nagarajan. So the topic is so very important, upskill to upscale. Well, let me just confess, I'm not an expert on these areas, but as a law professor and as a registrar of the university, we always strive to endeavor in order to upskill or reskill, or even to put it simply, to re-energize our students so that they are on par with whatever contemporary changes are happening around us across various domains, and those domains could be either for-profit domains or even not-for-profit domains. But when we talk about concepts like upskilling to upscaling and Industry 4.0 revolution, it only goes on to say that how much transformation happened around us digitally and even otherwise. And that makes it all evident that there is a need for greater skills, newer skills, and even to renew our existing skills, and even for refreshing our organizational mandates. But I, for one, would like to personally believe, and even on behalf of the university, if I may say so, that these changes and these transformative changes are just not going to happen in silos. That way, we just cannot work alone as a higher educational institution, and what is more required is a certain collaborative environment, and that collaboration with the industry across all domains becomes so very important because that would help us, one, to bridge whatever gaps there are there between the industry and even the higher educational institutions. And then we can also take away the learnings from here and any other conclaves of similar nature to our university, to our classrooms, and even we can revitalize our aspirations and our vision of career services in terms of how we intend to train our students in order to prepare them for the future, so that even organizations would be prepared to embrace them. So to me, there is no a greater upskilling model or a framework than this particular collaboration, because with these collaborative endeavors and whatever learnings we are going to take away from here, they are going to lead to enable our students to acquire a greater sort of a quotient, be it in terms of the work quotient or the social quotient or the emotional quotient, let alone the intellectual quotient, which we strive to impart day in and day out through our courses. And in fact, that's been the hallmark of our university, to provide a robust collaborative framework, both internally within the university and even externally, espousing all these values based on which our university was founded way back in 2009. And some of the values that are so very core to us, so very dear to us, is in order to impart interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary education, to enable our students to understand the importance of, say, pluralistic societies, and even to enable them to engage both at the national, domestic, and even at the international levels. And with all due modesty, if I may say, that's what, in fact, led us to acquire certain encomia, be it the recognition by the Government of India, Ministry of Education, as an institution of eminence, or even for that matter, our consistent rankings as per the QS World University Rankings. For the third year in a row, we have been ranked as the #1 social sciences university in the private sector in India. and we also happen to be amongst the top 700 universities in the world per the QS World University Rankings, in addition to certain other accomplishments like having distinct recognitions for our faculty-student ratio and international faculty and even employer reputation. And most recently, in the month of April 2022, even the Times Higher Education bestowed upon us recognition for our value accomplishments in consonance with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So what all of this really means, which is in consonance with the vision of the university and the vision of the founding chancellor, the benefactor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, and even the admirable work being done by the vice chancellor with his singular commitment to drive the university, and the advisor to the vice chancellor and the member of the governing body who is present with us this evening, Professor Dr. Sahani. It's only to ensure that we do something more for our students so that they acquire certain attributes by the time they graduate, be it in terms of either acquiring a certain in-depth knowledge on a particular subject area, or even having an attitude to have a self-reflection on the areas that they have been working on, and even to undertake certain civic and social responsibilities, and even to understand the diversity, but most important to be ethical in whatever work they undertake. And that's what even organizations and corporations can expect when they plan to recruit students from the Jindal Global University upon their graduation. But as I just mentioned a few moments ago, programs like the one that we are having this evening can enable us to learn more in terms of what else we need to do to ensure that we can reconfigure the graduate attributes of our students, and that itself is the great learning to each one of us, so that, in a very collaborative manner, we can ensure that our students are empathetic, they receive the right kind of education, and also they're energized when they're in the job market or the vocation that they intend to choose. So these are some of the takeaways that we expect from this particular program. And I have great pleasure in welcoming each one of you to this program once again. And we are grateful to you for having accepted our invite in order to set us on a path of the right strategic direction. And before I conclude, metaphorically, I would like to quote the conversation between Alice and Cheshire Cat in the Alice in Wonderland, wherein the conversation goes like this about the direction that should be taken by Alice, and then the Cheshire Cat says, as long as you are proceeding in the right direction, you can go ahead and proceed further. So I hope that together, collaboratively, we can proceed in the right direction for the future of our students and for the future of the civil society. Thank you so much, and thank you all for accepting our invite. And I'm also grateful to my colleagues for having set up this wonderful program this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful words, sir. I would now like to call upon the dais Professor of Eminence, Dr. Sanjeev P. Sahni. Dr. Sanjeev P. Sahni is the Professor of Eminence, Founder and Principal Director of the Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences. He is also serving as a Director for the Center of Leadership and Change Center for Victimology and Psych.
I'll introduce
Thank you so,
myself.
thank you so much, sir.
Very good evening and a welcome to all of you. We were busy in conducting interviews, HR interviews, next door. And I'm always a confused character whenever I conduct interviews. Am I a right person to conduct interviews? What do I see in 20 minutes, 30 minutes in an individual, and we hire them? I have no idea. Is this is a recruitment is the job of a HR people? I have no idea. Today, I want to learn from all of you that what should we do? Can we develop a strategy? So, an HR person is a god in India. I'm sorry, I know the stalwarts of HR are not going to like it. But let me tell you, I've also practiced HR for good 35 years. I've worked with the fourth largest industrial house in India for many years, set up various policies and standards and all those kind of things. But I'm still confused. Now, whether we are hiring people for manufacturing industry, consulting, or service industry, financial industry, so on. And now, the faculty, which is the most difficult thing to hire. You know, when I was in human resources, at that point of a time, we were having 16,500 employees. It was very easy to manage. But to manage handful of faculty, it's another set of HR. So HR, when we interview people, we put ourselves into that role, what I was when, of this age, when this person I'm interviewing. And at the back of my mind, I always have a salary that when I was of this age, how much I need to put in and why this person is asking 3 times more salary. And luckily, we don't have bands that we need to put it up to fix these people into that. And what we have seen over the period, that it's quite possible that an assistant general manager is getting a much more salary than a general manager. And there are internal issues as well. And for everything, whatever goes wrong in any industry, there is only one department to be blamed, that is HR. They are not getting good people. If any person is leaving, it comes on HR. Line manager, although when I studied in masters, I was told that people don't leave organization, they leave their managers. But nobody talks about line managers. And now the new setup, line manager said, who are you? Why you have to do anything in selection process? Let me hire this person and you do the salary thing. And then they complain you are not giving enough money. That's why people are not joining. This is one set. In fact, I want to tell you, way back in 1992, I met Mr. O.P. Chindal. And he was talking to someone. At that time, I was not in HR, probably. He said, somebody came to him and he said, Bauji, we have hired one HR person. You know what was the spontaneous reaction? भाई आदमी को रखने के लिए भी आदमी रखने पड़ते हैं. Can you imagine? So that was the time when it was meant that HR will do only the administration part. Then people realized, no, nothing to do with personnel or administration. They can do hiring as well. Now the concept is talent hunt or talent search or talent identification. We are very good in giving many jargons. It's a separate department now. And what HR does, they are very happy because they play with the salaries, increments, promotions. Very powerful department. I remember we always used to do it in the month of March and 1st of April it used to be applicable. And during the month of February and March, everybody used to be so nice with us. You know, because I worked in certain companies where food, the lunches used to be free, and everybody would like to come and sit and try to tell that what all they have done. And if the increments are okay, promotions are fine, they have done it well. But if anything goes wrong in terms of increment and promotions, line manager says, मैंने तो किया था, HR नहीं करता है. It's a typical problem in India. Now I want to have another side completely. The other side is students or any hire to whom you want to hire. What my practice, I must have interviewed over 70,000 people. I have not worked in BPO and KPO, sir. So in regular terms, I have, must have done interviews by 60, 70,000 people in my lifetime. I worked for good 13 years through UPSC with the government of India. Did not like working with them. And then I moved to the big corporations, top corporations of the world, and finally enjoying the academics and academia in our university. So when we, I'm glad Tanushri is here, she's going to have one session with you, we try to put maximum emphasis like if we prepare our students for industry fit, and that never happens. And that will not happen either. I'm not talking about skill, even skill does not. A mechanical engineer does not mean that he would be a can operate, or electrical engineer has to call to put a fuse in his own house. Now, all of us are being trained on the job, which is fine. But the major problem is the acceptance of academia into an industry and industry people into academia. I don't think, because I did a survey almost 11 years back in various IIMs, hardly 7% people in an organization like IIMs have ever visited industries. They've entered into industry. And they talk about hygiene theory all the time, and that does not work because in India, all of us we are doing crisis management. When we ask industry people to come and run a course for us, they said we are not hired for them, and obviously their employers, they don't. So there is a complete mismatch of industry and academia. How to integrate that? That's why we would love to have these kind of programs where in a larger scale we will make it a point that we learn from industry people, and we cannot, the professor think they know the best. But let me tell you the number of stories, I can quote it to you, but I'll quote only one small story, Nokia 1110. 3 professors from Judge Business School, Cambridge University were hired by the Nokia only for 3 months. And they said, we'll give you, at that point of a time, $2 million. You tell us what kind of a model, size, shape, and what kind of facilities we need to have in that kind of a cell phone so that, you know, we will be able to sell it. They came and stayed in Dharvi in Mumbai. They found out what they want. So there were 4 or 5 things, and then in 6 months, they could sell 5.5 million sets of Nokia 1110. I always give a classic example of NTC, National Textile Corporation, the biggest corporation in Asia. 125,000 people were working. One Dhirubhai Ambani got a Vimal. That was the need. So managing change is so important, which most of us, we have a fixed mindset, we are not ready to change. What happened to post offices in India? Why couldn't they start courier services? What happened to HMT? They used to manufacture Sona watch. People used to stand in queues, ask your parents for months together to get that Sona watch. What has happened to the one Titan company came and, or digital things have come? Are we preparing the mindset of our students to fit into your industry or not? That is the major thing which we need to discuss. And the last thing is, I think HR is in danger. Why we require HR? Why can't line managers can run it? What is so great in HR, with due respect to all of you, what is so great, I want to be educated, that only HR people can do it? You know, I always quote one person, Dave Ulrich or Ulrich. He said, 1990 was the era of competencies. Abhi tak India mein nahi aaya hai. In a full scale. We do it, I mean, because we are from the good organizations, but you talk to me in percentage, maybe 15%, 20% companies are using it, competency framework, assessment and development in a proper way. Then they said 2000 was the era of employee engagement. How much I'm engaged, not the engagement before marriage, but how much I'm engaged in my organization. They measure it. There are lot of money, I think $300 billion has been made by the consulting companies in administering the employee engagement surveys, like McKinsey does, organization health inventory and all. We also engaged with them. Then they said 2000 was the era of conscientiousness. The people with emotions, people with conscientiousness when they work, they think it's belongingness, self-esteem, and they do the best. How do you do that? All the time, if we are having a surveillance, why did you spend more time in toilet? You come late. That flexibility, adaptability is not there. People will say, okay, physically we are present, we are not going to work, there is a big fight going on. But whereas, I just want to give you a last example, that in United States, almost 3 to 4% restaurants are trying that not to put a right side the prices in their menu. So whatever you think right, you pay for it. And you know what? People end up paying more than their expectation. This is called conscientiousness. Flexibility. So HR says even certain organizations have a policy on attire. How much perfume you can wear, how much jewelry you can wear. There are many. I can even give it to you, even now it happens. But whereas Google says you can get your pet also if the coworker does not have a problem. Look at the contrast. We need to change ourselves. All of us. I mean, I would love to be educated by stalwarts of HR sitting over here that no. And let me tell you, like the way Tata have, what is their scheme? Tata Administrative Services. Similarly, Mahindra have, and I started this scheme that's a General Lead Management Trainee something. After hiring people from top 5 IIMs and 5 IITs, believe me, full 1 year we used to train them. Because if you ask me where they would be on 24th of April 2023, we'll tell you in this class or what this project they would be doing it. Because don't expect that academia or academics can give you a hands-on people straight away. We need to train them. We need to be happy to do that. Regarding, last thing, only one more minute. Regarding training and development, I really wonder, skill you can really try your level best. I call myself as a good trainer outside the house. But I'm being married for 31 years. I could not change my wife's behavior at all. And behavioral things is so difficult to change. Temporarily things can change, but don't expect much of the things. And in most of the Indian settings, the training need analysis is paralyzed in a big way. You must be doing it very well. Please, I'm talking in majority what happened in most of the organization. Not a proper system. Reporting officer does not have a time even to evaluate or tell you that what kind of trainings are required. One thing HR does very well is performance management system, because most of the people in HR, they have a lot of interest in doing that. So I want to learn, I want to understand, I want to know the latest policies, new concepts, new paradigms. And today I'm very lucky that one of the best HR people are sitting here, and I'll be very happy to spend next 2 hours with all of you to learn if we have changed in HR or not. Once again, thank you very much. And I deeply apologize because we were stuck in the HR. It is not fair on our part if we will not complete, but we are with you till dinner. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for such an engaging and informative speech, sir. I am sure that the questions that you asked would be answered during the course of the conclave. Now, it is my immense pleasure to invite on the dais Mr. Balaji Kumar, the Global CHRO at Sonata Software, to please deliver a special address for the evening. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, and a very good evening on a beautiful evening in Bangalore. Professor Sani, you've really set the standard very high, and I am actually feeling the performance anxiety right now. And Soumya, you'll have to keep the time check, because I'm married to a school teacher, and I have 2 boys who are in their late teens, so you can understand my plight. Nobody listens to me. So whenever I get such a beautiful audience which is so patiently listening, I lose sense of time. Okay. So I wanted to speak a little bit about upscaling, not so much on upskilling, for the simple reason I know my dear friend Suresh Beth, he's been a veteran HR professional, and I knew that he would talk about upskilling, and whatever I would talk about upskilling would pale into complete insignificance in terms of what he would say. So that's why I deliberately chose upscaling. The other reason why I wanted to talk about upscaling is I think this is a very august gathering in terms of a rich and diverse mix of people, both from the academia as well as the industry. And I would want to leave certain thoughts, both as a practitioner and as a budding academician, if I may say so. Arindam spoke about what we have witnessed in the last 2.5 years in COVID, and that's a cliche term. A lot of us have heard quite a lot of it. And a lot of the practitioners and the academicians also would have heard that we are moving from a so-called VUCA world to a BANI world, right? So VUCA, just for the sake of repetition, VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And the BANI world, which actually has gained currency post-COVID, stands for a world which is brittle, which is anxious, which is non-linear, and which is incomprehensible. And that's what we have all faced in the last 2.5 years in multiple facets. BANI is brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. Right? And COVID and the pandemic actually was a stark reminder that the world indeed is that. Is this done? Is it done and dusted? Is it over? No. You will see many more such things in different forms and shapes. It may not be as dramatic as what we have encountered. But having seen the troubles and tribulations of people, organizations, systems in the last 2.5 years on the ground, I think there's one thing which really stood out, is that people who really had that capacity to deal with a BANI world, they were the ones who actually made a huge difference. And that's what led me to think about what is it that made these people succeed, even in such a, BANI world, so to speak. And that's when I realized that probably we are moving into the age of new capitalism. And I'll exemplify what I mean by that new capitalism. And there are three fundamental aspects to that new capitalism that I speak about. So one is what I call the cognitive capital, right? And this is something which each one of us possesses or should possess and should probably gain the right experiences to build those capacities, if you will. The first is what I call as the cognitive capital. The second is what is referred to as the social capital, which Professor Saini, being a esteemed academician, would resonate with that. And the third, which is something which we've seen in the last 5 years gain a lot of currency, is what is known as the psychological capital. Right? So that new capitalism is going to define how people are going to upscale themselves and be able to lead in a Bani world. And let me demystify each one of these three elements. Cognitive capital is a lot about your ability to be curious about things which are happening around you. So a lot of information, when you seek information, when your curiosity, intellectual curiosity, your ability to process that, your ability to connect those dots. So that's one part of cognitive capital. The second and the more important part, which Professor Saini also referred to, and Arindam also in his earlier conversation referred to, is about learning agility or cognitive flexibility, so to speak. The ability to constantly learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's the second part. The third part is all about reflection. And this is one element which really stands out from people who've been able to upscale themselves and people who have gotten stuck there. The ability to reflect on what is happening around you in your world and what is happening within you and learn from it and change constantly. And some of the academicians and people who've come from the learning and development world, they'll resonate with what is known as the Kolb's learning cycle. Right? So if you were to then extrapolate that Kolb's learning cycle, one very fundamental element of the Kolb's learning cycle, which actually translates to learning and growth, is the ability to reflect. And that ability is somewhere missing in a lot of people. Right? So that's, and the last part of cognitive capital lies in this beautiful body of knowledge called systems thinking. All the people who've been able to really navigate through these Bani times have the uncanny ability to think systemically. And systemic thinking is about being able to connect the dots which may seem disparate and not connected. The ability to look or foresee the consequences of the actions that they're taking today 2 or 3 years down the line. Right? So that essentially is systems thinking. And I really don't mean to give a long lecture on each one of these, but I would want to leave some of these as thought starters. And towards the end, probably I'll just try and connect as to how industry and academia can come together to solve this. The second part, which is social capital, again, there's much written on it, but essentially what it means is how do people build a web of interpersonal relationships within the society or the organization or the institution that they are working in, whereby they're able to influence and get things done. And there are components to it. The first and foremost component is the ability to communicate and connect. I mean, we are living in a time, and Arindam also mentioned this fact about connection, right? We are all, at the end of the day, we are all social beings. Nothing gets done individually. So the ability to connect and communicate, so that's the first and foremost part. But it does not stop there. A lot of my industry colleagues will appreciate this entire field of work that we speak about and practice every day, diversity and inclusiveness. That is the second part. How are you inviting diverse perspectives, not shutting them off, and making them feel valued, and then, leverage on that collective wisdom? So that's the second thing. The third is empathy, right? None of this is possible without empathy. And the last one, which is not so much spoken about in the social capital, but one of my favorite areas of research is fairness at the workplace. And what I've realized is fairness and justice at the workplace goes a significant way in building the social capital within an organization and within individuals. Right? So that's the social capital part. And the psychological capital, there's enough and more literature written there. Fred Luthans started this in 2017. Psychological capital is all about how do you, how are you able to play to your own strengths? How is it that you're able to leverage your own resources, right? And be able to, look at the world around you optimistically and in a hopeful manner. And there is an acronym for that. They call it the HERO, which is hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it, which is connects to the earlier one, people who have shown extremely high levels of psychological capital are those who realize what their strengths are, play to their strengths, and at the same time, they also realize what their so-called weaknesses are, and they don't try to fix them too much. What they do is they spot for people around them who have those complementary skills and capabilities, and they surround themselves with them. And that's how it becomes then a social enterprise, and people start leveraging both the intellectual capital and social capital of this group. And the most important thing which leads people to constantly refine themselves and build their psychological capital is self-awareness. As long as people are not self-aware, as long as they do not invest in building that muscle around self-awareness, all of these three things will fall flat on its face. So that's what I call as the new capitalism. And the more we start investing in the younger generation in terms of building the foundation blocks of this new capitalism, the more we will be able to handle a Barney world as we see. The kind of brittleness, anxiousness that you will see will continue. The only thing that we can do is how do we really equip ourselves to handle that situation. And the beauty about the human mind, and a lot of you would have heard about and read about neuroplasticity, the human brain and the human mind is a phenomenal organ. It would never get bogged down by any of these unless you start training it to deal with these situations. Now, how do we really help people build these capacities or this capital? I think one of the first things that I've learned, having led leadership development, learning and development, and a lot of my colleagues will agree, that what you read, right, what you study, contributes only marginally to your growth and development. And that's why one of the things that a lot of organizations are striving to do is, how is it they are able to provide those experiences in those organizations where they're able to prototype what they are likely to face and learn the skills on the go. In this entire journey of building this new capital, providing experiences not only to functioning managers in organizations today, but also students in campuses is an extremely integral part, right? And I think that's where an institution like, the Jindal Global University, given the fact that they have such a multidisciplinary, approach, right? How is it that industry and the university can collaborate to provide those experiences, whether they are in terms of internships, whether they are in terms of projects, and be able to provide the opportunity for the students to learn these skills in the course of those projects live. And that's where I think both the industry and the academia can actually collaborate significantly in terms of the projects that are given and co-creating those projects, co-creating the entire structure of how these projects are done, and provide the environment and the safety net where children of today become leaders of tomorrow. So those are a few thoughts that I really wanted to share with you, and thank you for being a very patient audience. Soumya, I hope I have not exceeded my time.
So, thank you very much for a very thought-provoking address. It touched a deep chord with me. Please allow me to reflect on that reflection bit. So, it is very close to my heart as well, and there is one quote from John Dewey. We don't learn from experiences, we learn from reflecting on our experiences. I just want to understand, I'm pretty curious to know from you, are there some structured way in which you encourage reflection individually and collectively in your organization, other than experiential learning or opportunities for experiences? Thank you.
Sure. No, a great question. I think one of the ways that we've tried doing in the past and currently that we do is how do you train your managers and leaders to ask the right questions which actually set the entire process of reflection, right? And this is where, since you are, you like reflection, you come from that field. If you read Peter Senge's Fifth Discipline, right? That's where you move from advocacy to inquiry, right? So inquiry, when you ask the right questions, is what leads to reflection. And if and that's what managers and leaders of today need to really master. And what also then is assumed is they themselves are good at reflection. And for that, what at least we've done in the past is when you do these leadership development programs, we've designed them very specifically in a way that there are those white spaces which are created where you actually, force them to reflect so that they strengthen their muscle for reflection. Because the belief there is that everybody has the power, everybody has the ability to reflect. It's just that like a muscle, for some, it gets developed well, and for some, it doesn't get developed well. And if I were to use an MBTI parlance, for a lot of my colleagues will understand, those who are introverts have developed very strongly that muscle to reflect. But people who are supposedly extroverts have not developed that muscle to reflect, but they have it in them. So how do you then create those spaces for them, right, for them to reflect? Does it answer your question?
Perfect, fair enough. So my...
I personally feel this is more onto the individual differences because as the school of empiricism says that an experience, John Locke theory, many people don't agree with it. Similarly, the theory of rationalization through reasoning, many people don't feel that that is right. Authoritarianism means this we learn through books and authorities, that may not work. But the fourth, which is the most important, and I want to reflect you on that, is on intuition. Intuition is a scientific thing, not that gut feeling what we are talking about. But I totally agree with him. How I grew up and how my cognitive abilities have been developed, that will shape my learning process completely. I don't know if I've answered you.
No, absolutely. I completely resonate with his thoughts. So my only concern was, how do you make people move from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence? So that was the only thing. But you have, in a way, answered my question already. Thank you so much. That's
But
fantastic.
and a lot of it also depends on, then the entire systemic support comes in.
Yes.
What are you rewarding people for?
Yes.
Right? What are you recognizing people for? What are you punishing people for? And that's where one still has to go back to the time-tested old theories, right? And unfortunately, what happens is a lot of times, and I have fallen myself in that trap, that when we design people systems in organizations, we design in terms of, what is convenient to us and what we know. Rarely do we go back to some of these theoretical principles and see, does it really stand the test of those theories?
Right.
But if you were to really bring it back, maybe some of these questions, probably we will find answers to them.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Maybe, we work under the same roof, but you never asked me this question, but that doesn't mean that I'm competent enough to do that. But, I want to tell that wait for 5 years, the entire recruitment system, entire promotions, increment, bonuses, everything is going to happen through behavioral assessment, through various gadgets like brain mapping and all that. Very soon. Now, I just want to let you know that new thing which is going to come is BFI, like the BMI, there's a BFI, Brain Fitness Index. Now, when you're asking about unconscious and the conscious, today we have those machines where we can assess that how much percentage you are using conscious behavior or a unconscious behavior or a subconscious behavior. Different set of people are using different. Again, I will go back, how I have been raised, 0 to 5, 0 to 7 years are the most important thing where we learn which behavior we need to use it. And scientifically, objectively, we can measure this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Professor Sani.
Just as an aside, so I used to head the entire assessment practice for a large conglomerate at one point in time. And one of the projects that we were working on is the language which people use in their the mail conversations, emails, etc. That is a heuristic to their personality. And yeah, enough said on that. Thank you so much. Okay.
This is not a question. Yeah.
Don't make it a bureaucratic. This session can go till 11 p.m. We're all learning. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. This is not a question, but ma'am, just to add to what Mr. Kumar and Professor Sahani said, when it comes to, it's very interesting to know you're talking about unconscious competence, but I really invite you to reflect upon this question. How often do you really think about the unconscious bias that your employees have as an HR? The moment you, the moment you think about the unconscious bias that your employees have and try to remove them, that's exactly when they leap from unconscious competence to conscious competence, right? And the moment they get into conscious competence mode, that's when they start unlearning and they start distinguishing, right? And that's exactly where, they come into the performance zone. That's what I understand.
According to me, I could be totally wrong. Unconscious biases cannot be removed. Unless it's a rigorous training, completely different environment, you may a little bit change, but I'm really doubtful that it can be changed.
I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
So the beauty about this is, unfortunately, biases have been labeled to be a very bad word. But biases serve a lot of important functions, right? So as long as one understands, and by the way, we cannot live without our biases. My biases will go with me to my grave. As long as I understand first and foremost what my biases are. And the second thing is whether these biases are functional or dysfunctional. I think that's what we can do. I have tried removing my biases. I have not been able to, and I have now made peace with it. And these are the two questions that I am asked myself. Am I aware of my biases? Is the bias functional or dysfunctional?
Yeah, absolutely resonate with that. But as I can quote, the fundamental problem of life is the frailty of human nature.
He will beat
right?
me down. He's getting very anxious about the time.
Yeah. Sorry, I'd let him continue then.
Time for one question.
Thank you for your genuinely and extremely informative words, sir. I am surely not the only person today who learnt about Barney from you. I'm sure quite a few people have learnt many new things from you today, and thank you so much for coming. I would now like to request Mr. Suresh Beth, the Chief People's Officer at Mindtree, to please come and deliver the special address. And thank you so much for taking the time and effort to join us today, sir. I know that you were extremely busy. Once again, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Very difficult act to follow after Balaji. I call him P and P. He's also a professional and also a professor, right? Very tough, right? So we've been here for about an hour and a quarter now, and I think there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of exchange. And I just wanted to share a few things. I just prepared some context for this occasion. The upskill, the way I looked at it, I come from an IT background. That's all I've done all through my career. The upskill can be seen as reskilling, upskilling, relearning, unlearning, right? But my fundamental belief is that if we as human beings don't learn or unlearn, does life sound interesting? But are you conscious of that? Right? The question that I ask myself, and I tell my team every day, right, in every occasion, is that have you learned something today? Have you put that as a priority in your head to say today, this week, this month, this fortnight, I've learned this? And every time you ask this question, there is an awareness that you're creating in your entire system of thinking. So to me, I just wanted to take this and start relating it to what this industry has gone, right? So just before I did that, there was a famous quote from Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie, as all of you are aware, founder of CMU. He said, everyone should spend the first third of their life learning, the second third of their life earning, and the last third of their life returning. So the question for all of you are professionals, or some students also, right, is that are you in the business or in the process of returning? When I say returning, in your ecosystem, where you work, you study, are you taking the effort of returning, right? I've always looked at my life and I said, whatever skills, little skills that I have, whatever expertise that I have, I will make it a point to pass it on to somebody, provided that the other person is interested in learning. But from my perspective, I will always be willing to receive any input, any learning, any knowledge in order for me to become better, because my belief in the IT industry, which is extremely competitive, the respect that you get, the recognition that you get is not by the title that you hold. Not by the title that you hold. Titles are impermanent. Right? Today I'm a CPO of Mindtree. I work for a very large American corporation called Cognizant. Spent a lot of time, then I worked for Wipro. But the fact that you're known when you work for a longer period of time by certain capabilities, expertise, behavior, knowledge, attitude, approach, that is permanent. That stays with you, regardless of the title, the organization that you work for. The question for all of us here in this gathering is, how conscious are we in returning? Do we really do it day in and day out? And the fact that I do this regularly and religiously creates an ambience, right, where everybody believes that they learn. And I always believe, if you look at the mood in a university, college, or a school, right, there's a lot of fun, right? Nobody is trying to prove anything to anybody else. But if you compare and contrast that with a organizational construct, there's a significant change, right? So are we really returning? That's my point. The second point, turning our focus on the IT industry, where I come from. This industry has seen multiple S-curves. S-curves are the hockey stick. It's a beginning of a particular technology, beginning of a particular opportunity, or the start of an industry, and then it ends. During that period of time, maturity happens, opportunities come your way. But if you really trace back the last 4 decades of IT, software services, products, solutions, this industry has innovated. Every time a crisis hit, this industry became creative. This industry became innovative. A couple of examples. I don't know how many of you are aware of Y2K, how many of you are aware of .NET, web technologies. Subsequently, ERP came into the picture, then Lehman Brothers happened, 9/11 happened, right? Right now, as we stand here today, October 2022, we are staring at a huge storm, a hurricane, right? There are a number of reports that are doing rounds that says that this industry is going to collapse. And already there are press reports that say that multiple corporations have announced their plans to reduce workforce. Some of them have already done it, some of them are doing it, some of them are going to do it, and the earnings that has come out from TCS, from Wipro, from Infosys, from HCL, and we announced our results yesterday, gives a very, very cautious picture of what lies ahead, right? The other point that I just wanted to highlight, since all of you are human resources professional, there is a big element, there is an elephant in the room called workplace. And I think that workplace definition, what it means to each corporation, what it means to each talent community, each country, has significantly changed in the last 2.5 years, thanks to COVID. Do we really understand that very well, and do we really have solutions to address that? I really don't know. And I think, to me, there are multiple models that are being spoken about. There's somebody who says that I will give you a job 100% work from home. There's someone who says that I'll give you hybrid. There's someone else says that no way, you jolly well come to office, otherwise I'll send you to a official doctor. So which means that those companies must be appointing hundreds and thousands of doctors because the workforce is so large, right? So the dynamics that is playing out in terms of what employer wants versus talent communities expect, the flexibility and so on and so forth, I think it's going to play out big time in my mind. And I don't think there is any solution that has come out that is proven, that is tested. Now, if you look at the upskill, Balaji talked about the upscale. This industry has provided enormous opportunity, right? And if you take the case of India, I have some data points that says that based on the digitalization agenda of the clients globally, right, we have 1,500 GCCs, Global Capability Center, and there are hundreds of global innovation centers that have come to this country. And there are millions of people who form the workforce of the industry. And I think at the core of this industry, the technology that each of these corporations have worked has transformed and has solved global issues. Couple of examples that I just want to highlight. One, when this industry was faced with COVID, or the world was faced with COVID, all of us were told not to come out, right? I don't know how many of you are able to appreciate the magnitude of just this country. Forget about everybody else. Forget about China, forget about the United States, forget about Europe. There are millions of people who had to convert their homes into offices. Will you agree with me that in the last 2.5 years, we are almost getting to the third year completion, there has not been a single escalation from any customer so far, from any corporation. I think that's a tremendous unleashing of the power of technology and our ability to be able to adapt to newer circumstances, which is why I said the previous point, the whole construct of what is workplace, I think needs a little bit more clarity. And I think the latest controversy is on moonlighting. Will you allow moonlighting? Will you not allow moonlighting? What is moonlighting? Is moonlighting the right way? So on and so forth. There are lots of opinions that are doing around, and there are also companies that have come out publicly and said that we have fired and terminated people because they were moonlighting, right? There isn't any definition of what moonlighting should be or shouldn't it be. The second biggest example, look at the way India as a country responded with the vaccine. 1.3 billion. Look at the supply chain, look at the manufacturing, look at the distribution, look at the database of your age, your sex, your state, right? All of those details have to drive the ability for the government of India or the state governments to be able to drive the vaccination. There was dosage 1, there was 2, there was a booster. Just imagine the magnitude and the complexity of doing it. Technology came to help that, and not only did India do this for its own citizens, we also ended up exporting significant amount of vaccines produced by Indian companies to other parts of the world to help the citizens of those countries. Phenomenal example of how technology can help solve large healthcare issues, social issues, which actually threaten the humanity in a way. I was just wondering, if the vaccine was not available to all of us, what would have happened, right? So the last example, I think Arindam had already covered this, but I just wanted to restate that, right? Look at the digital payment scenario in India. Take a look at the volume of transactions. Take a look at the amount of currency that gets transferred. It's a solution purely driven by technology. And I think many of the companies, including developed economies, are taking a look at the case study that India has presented. How are these guys doing it? There's a guy who's selling tender coconut, right? There's a guy who's selling a pan. There's a guy who's selling a chai by the road corner, who says that you don't have to give me cash. Have you ever imagined 5 years ago that we will be able to do? Today, I think all of us, or most of us, believe that we don't need a wallet, right? We don't need a purse. We don't need cash. We only need mobile. The moment I have a mobile, I have the power to purchase. What has enabled that? The technology, the conversions of multiple digital technologies coming together. The last one that I just wanted to leave you with is the fact that there are certain things, right? I think in the last couple of years, as we spoke about digitalization, digital agenda, corporations moving to providing edge to end computing, customer experience and all that, I think we have stretched that agenda a little too far. I still believe that there are certain professions where it will be very difficult for us to be able to do everything through automation, machine language, artificial intelligence, right, cloud and so on and so forth. At least two that I think of. One is the job of a teacher. I think Professor was alluding to that, right? You won't be able to automate everything and put a robo in O.P. Jindal University and then say, robo, you teach now the subjects, and then all of us will learn, and then we will go back and get assessed. Very difficult. The second one is the law of the profession of lawyers, right? And I can go on, right? Will an Indigo pilot sit at home and fly the plane from point A to point B, right? And the last point that I wanted to make is, I think as I see the engineering scene and as I see the academic scene, larger number of students, the folks who are in the 18 plus category, seem to be gravitating to IT. Now the question therefore that comes to my mind, as we evolve as a society, will we all be consumed only by digital, or will we also have others who are required for us to have a successful country, successful community, successful system, right? That's something that really worries me. Finally, right, relating to this topic, which is very, very relevant, and I really want to congratulate the organizers for picking up this, right? It's a very relevant topic for what's going on in the marketplace at this point of time, because there is a huge demand-supply issue. In spite of the macroeconomic factors, there is still demand for people, for good people. There's absolutely no shortage of that. Now, I think Balaji talked about it. Are we really looking at partnership between academia and industry? I still think there is a lot that can be done. We have only touched the tip of the iceberg. I do go for several seminars in several universities, several other forums. I still believe that we have talked about it for quite some time, but there hasn't been a mechanism that has really translated those aspirations into realizable goals, right? I just want to leave that with you as you go into the other session. And the last point that I want to leave with you is also make sure that in the society that you live in, if you have the opportunity to influence some of the youngsters, right, and if they can do something beyond IT, I think all of us should be able to encourage that, because it will be very difficult to just convert this world into, you know, AI, ML, cloud and things like that, right? I think somewhere we are getting into that one-track mind with a blinder, saying that I meet a lot of students. I love interacting with them. I ask them, buddy, what do you want to do? Sir, I want to do computer science. Why? My brother is in San Jose. He makes a lot of money, drives very sexy cars. I also want to replicate his life. In fact, I want to make more money sooner than he has made, because I'm a digital guy, right? I get a little worried that then will we have musicians, will we have artists, will we have automotive engineers, will we have supply chain specialists? There's a world out there, right? And the world is not just about IT. Thank you for this opportunity. Really enjoyed being here, listening to the entire conversation. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, please. No, you're loud enough.
Actually, I have two questions at this time.
Go ahead.
About the impact of COVID on the tech industry. So obviously it changed the hiring process and in all colleges basically. So my question is that in the past 2-3 years, has it affected the quality of the hire?
Has it affected the quality of a hire? If you are sitting at home in Bangalore and flying an Indigo plane from Bangalore to Mumbai, I don't know first whether the flight will take off, and I don't know whether the flight will land, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, there is a big concern, right, today because of the virtual world that we are living in, that students have gone through majority of their engineering course only through virtual mode. And the fact that Balaji talked about social capital, emotional capital, psychological capital, you can't sit and learn machine theory sitting at one corner of Bangalore or any part of the, right? So has it impacted the quality? Yes, not just from a sense of academia. It has impacted the overall development of what an individual would have learned had that person been in a physical space, interacting with fellow students, professors and other places, hostel and so on and so forth. In fact, there are courses where management programs, where the entire batch got admitted virtually, studied virtually, got interviewed virtually, offered virtually, joined virtually and working virtually even today. Okay? Bulk of the workforce of Indian IT today in the last 2.5, 3 years, they have not seen their building, they have not seen their managers. I get into physical meetings because I travel extensively. The conversation that starts at 9 a.m. for the day's workshop is, I thought you are slimmer than what you look like. You have a big paunch. Right? I actually thought that you don't have such a big mustache. So 30 minutes of the conversation is just going in, explaining the physical attributes. I actually thought you were in Malleshwaram, but now only you are telling me that you are coming from Rajajinagar. So the ability to relate to certain aspects which were taken for granted is making a difference. And I actually worry if this continues, because there is a potential movement, right, in the country to say that we will not come to office. We will do what we want to do. You should allow us to do whatever we want to do. Over a period of time, if this continues, will you have the ability to celebrate success? Will you have the ability to handle a failure? Will you know how to talk to a client? Will you be able to handle a crisis in your own personal life, a relationship issue? Do you know how to handle your partner, your partner, spouse, friends, right? Do you have the ability to relate to people's emotions, sentiments, right? And I think Arindam, right, the person from, the gentleman from Wells Fargo, he put it very nicely. If you don't know how you want to learn, who you want to learn, right, and if you really don't know what you have accomplished during the day, because you're just confined to a small room, and in the process of doing that, I have found people who are working for 4 companies. The record that I've heard, right, in my own example, 7 jobs. So I said, boss, you are a guru, man. So you knew how, which John you have to send the status report, which Michelle is calling you, and so on and so forth. Right? So we need to be, while we celebrate a lot of good things that happen and the kind of transformation that we bring to the table, we have behaved like human beings. We need to behave like human beings in order for us to have that ability to have the rationality, emotional quotient, social capital, right? We all give our shoulders to our friends, right?
Yeah.
Yes? So I don't know whether that will continue if this mode of working, living our life continues. Our children are going to school, by the way. Our children, kindergarten children, wake up in the morning, they get dressed, but this workforce has a huge issue of not being able to show up. What was the second part of the question?
So yes, the second question, you said that you cannot make robots teach people, right?
Yeah.
So this is from one tech person to another, sir. Why not make robots do the things you're teaching students for?
Wait, sorry, say that again?
So you said that...
No, I got that part. What is the second part?
The second part is that, sir, why not make robots to automate stuff which for which we are teaching students to do that?
No. So I did not say that we should not automate. I did not say that robots cannot be deployed. All I'm saying is, don't stretch the impact of technology beyond the realm of possibilities.
Okay, sir.
Then I can also marry a robo, right? Why should I marry? My wife's name is Varalakshmi. Now I will have a Varalakshmi in the form of a robo, and I'll just go to the robo and then say, Varalakshmi, give me a cup of coffee. Go get me my dosa, right? Where is my coat? I can do that, right? So you have to understand that there is life and there is technology. If you try to mix these two, which in our context or the current life that we are living in, we seem to be going too deep and too far, and we believe that everything can be done by technology. That I'm a little worried, because it won't set you up for success in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, guys. All right, yeah. Yes, please, let's go quick.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Sunil from Sapiens, HR team. Sir, I have a question that do you support retaining or rehiring ex-employees?
There are two parts.
I mean, rehiring or ex-employees. Do you support
Yeah,
this
so
method
do you-
or you are
I
against?
think the answer is yes.
Okay.
The answer is, I'll tell you what I have done in
Thank
my
you.
organization.
Thank you.
I have said that if you are doing it, there are certain guidelines that you need to follow, because one of the things that I witnessed, at least last year, was people, because the demand was so high, and if you look at the industry, trace it back to the last several decades, it's always has gone through a cycle, right? It is an employer's market, and then there comes the employees market. The last 2 years, in my opinion, 20 and 21, fueled by pandemic, was an employees market. What was happening was, because the rehire and the demand was so high, and demand was always outstripping the supply, people were indulging in a lot of practices that were not very healthy, right? There are people who went out, came back the next week, and then said, please get me back, and I'm happy to come back. If possible, give me 10% increase. That if possible was a side kind of a comment, number one. Number two was, there were also kind of pact between the manager and the team member, say, boss, aap jao, baad mein dekha jayega, kind of a stuff. What I have done, your ex-employees are most welcome. They understand the process, they understand the culture, they understand your solutions, and they are very quick to come back and start from day one. Otherwise, this industry, the gestation period for you to be productive is anywhere between 3 to 12 months, depending on how smart you are and how complex the program is, right? So I'm not against bringing people, but you have to govern it with some norms. Otherwise, you will let a lot of bad things happen to your organization.
Yes, this depends upon company to company. Okay? I will not hire, at least for 2 years. I have made a policy that if you are leaving us, you cannot come back before.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because there is a reason, he can hear me. There is a reason because, these people come, they may not be doing well at other places, and the people where, they're already employed, they get very upset. See, anybody can go, anybody can come back. That doesn't talk about good about or give the reputation to the
I actually don't worry about the transactional aspect of rehiring. I worry about the cultural aspect of the rehiring. If you're going to let droves of people out and you're going to get droves of people back, 99.9% of the cases I've seen, they come back at a grade higher or compensation higher. So the message that you're culturally sending out is, if you really want to make more money, or if you want to accelerate your career path, go out, put in the effort to get an offer letter, come and negotiate, you will get it. To me, that is very negative. That's very damaging. Right? I wouldn't encourage that culture. Yep. Thank you.
We'll take the question at the end of the panel. I think we're running late for the panel. I think it's time for me to upskill and upscale. So I'm going to think creatively and innovate here. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to make both the sessions work together. We are two moderators, so we're going to moderate the session together so that we finish this on time, so that we can have dinner on time, right? So we also, no, same venue. Two panel discussions, the topics are different, the speakers are different, so we will address specific speaker for specific question, so that one question would be on panel 1, the second question could be on panel 2. So I'm moderating it. So there are 7 speakers only, it'll be good, sir. We'll try it. I want to innovate and see if we can do it. Before I move on to this, may I really invite our advisor to Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Sanjeev Sani, and Registrar to honor our guest. May I request Soumya and Gaurav and Abhishek to please help. May I now request Mr. Balaji, please accept our small token of gift, and also Suresh, Mr. Suresh.
Professor Sridhar knows him, and last week we were in Dehradun when he spoke to you in my presence, and he immediately accepted it within few minutes. And thank you very much. And we are also grateful to Balaji for having introduced Mr. Suresh to us. After that phone call, you have other speakers.
May I request Jeetu and the Deputy Director also to join for a group photo, please? Mr. Jeev, Professor Jeevan. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, extremely sorry. I stand corrected. Sir, excuse me, sir. Group photo, please. That's too. We'll quickly, 5 minutes, we'll take a working tea break. You can get your tea to your table. By that time, we'll arrange the panel here, and we'll start in next 5 minutes. 5 minutes break, please. Yeah, thank you. May I request all the guests to come to the seat? You can bring your food, that's not a problem. You can bring your tea and food to your table, please. You can bring your tea and snacks to your table, no problem. You can sit there and eat and listen, no issues. So, may I request all of you to please settle down. We will have a short 5 minutes quick introductory talk of OP Jindal by Mr. Jitu Mishra, following which we will start the panel discussion.
Good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to the HR Conclave at Bangalore. In 5 minutes, briefly, I'll talk to you about OP Jindal Global University and what we do. We started the university in 2009 as a philanthropic initiative of Mr. Naveen Jindal, who contributed 1,100 crores out of his own fortune to create this university. So when we started this university in 2009, philanthropy in higher education was very unheard of in the whole of India. Yes, there were universities in the West like Harvard University, which was created as a philanthropic university of John Harvard. Stanford University was created as a philanthropic initiative of Jane and Leland Stanford. Yale University was created as a philanthropic initiative of Elihu Yale. But in India, probably we are the first major initiative, philanthropic initiative of an industrial house to create a university of this stature. We started in 2009 with one school, 100 students, 10 faculty members, and 20 administrative staff. And today, we have 12 schools, more than 9,000 full-time students, more than 900 full-time faculty members, and more than 650 administrative staff. We have been maintaining a faculty-student ratio of 1:9 throughout. And I'll tell you, there have been 5 aspects to the university. The first aspect is globalization. We teach global courses through global curriculums through global faculty. Our faculty members come from 46 different countries. So you look around, they come from all across the world. 11% of the full-time faculty members are international faculty. The second aspect of our globalization is the qualification of our faculty members. More than 60% of the faculty members have at least one international qualification from top 200 universities. 18% of the faculty members are from the top IITs and IIMs, and 17% of the faculty members are from the top central universities. Another aspect of our globalization is our international collaborations or global collaborations with more than 350 universities across 55 countries. And these collaborations are in the form of faculty exchange, student exchange, joint teaching, joint research, joint publication, joint conferences, joint executive education, summer school, winter school, and study abroad programs. Our students go to universities across the world on the student exchange to take up programs. The faculty from across the world come to our university to teach full-time programs to our students. The second aspect of our university is our contribution to research. We are a humanities and social sciences driven university. And being a humanities and social sciences university, our faculty members have published more than 4,000 research articles over the last 13 years, which is again quite a significant achievement for a university which is non-STEM and non-health sciences. Our faculty members are encouraged and motivated and incentivized through various policies and processes through which they publish. The third aspect of our university is our contribution to the society. We work with the downtrodden people in the state of Haryana through our legal aid clinic and through our social entrepreneurship clubs. We have been able to create an intellectually vibrant community at a place called Sonipat, where faculty members and distinguished scholars from across the world come and deliver talks, lectures, and take courses for our students. The fifth aspect of our university is our contribution to executive education. Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences under the leadership of Dr. Sahni and Jindal Institute of Leadership and Executive Education have been conducting a lot of executive education programs for organizations in public sector, in private sector, MNCs, and government organizations. We have been able to attract and retain people from across the world, and we have been successful while delivering global courses and global curriculums at a place called Sonipat over the last 14 years. Thank you so much, and I'll request Professor Padmanabha Ramanujam to please start the session. Thank you.
Good evening. May I request both the panel speakers to please come and occupy your seats. The format is going to be very simple. Towards my left would be the speakers who would be in panel 1, and towards my extreme left would be people who will be in speaker panel 2. So may I request the panel speakers to please come and take your speaking slots, please. And may I also request Tanushri, Professor Tanushri, moderator 2, also to come and take a seat. So please take your seats, we'll get another chair arranged. Tanu? Tanushri? Yeah, I'm standing. So the format is going to be very simple. I will try to exhaust my questions with panel session speakers 1, and then I'll pass on and invite my moderator 2 to kick in and ask questions to the panel's discussion topic 2. And then at the end we will have a discussion, but in between if somebody wants to add on to what is being discussed, apart from the speakers who have been called on to answer the questions, you can raise and you can definitely have your say. So we want to keep it very open, but let's try and complete this with 40 minutes or 45 minutes, quick reflections and quick address, so that we can have some time for Q&A and then we can have a quiet dinner, okay? So this is the way we're going to proceed. We have 2 panel discussion topics here today. One is Industry 4.0, which is the interface of technology and how technology is basically creating, I would say, interventions, and how people of this generation and students of this generation, and how automation, digital platforms, what we speak, and what is the future relevance of that in the larger context of Industry 4.0. And the second one is, obviously we had a lot of discussion as part of our initial inaugural lecture, which is upskill to upscaling. So without delay, why we chose Industry 4.0 is, we are seeing how technology is changing the space in which we live. Thanks to COVID, many industries, many professions, many institutions, including education, which did not want to interface with technology, started using technology more. So let's be very honest, if you go 2-3 years back, distance education program was a pejorative term. If you say that you are doing a distance education program, nobody respected you, or nobody even had a value for what you were doing. But what actually happened in COVID was a very, I would say, another phenomenon of a distance education program, which was like an online program. People could not go to your normal schools, normal educational institutions, and technology had a very important role. And professions like legal professions, courts like Supreme Courts, which never interfaced with technology,
had to shift their hearing to online courts. Never in the history of independent India, Supreme Court was shifted to an online hearing, and thanks to COVID, we had to see that also, right? My question is largely going to be focused on technology in the larger space of Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0, we know that we are in Industry 4.0, we had an age of industrialization and then, computerization. Now we have digitalization, which is, absolutely taking all the space, taking all the focus. So I'm sure you would have read the Fortune 500 companies, if you say 20 years back, it was all oil manufacturing companies, Shell, BP, British Petroleum, were all the richest companies. If you see today, if you top 10 would be, 6 would be digital companies, right? So my first question would be to the speaker who is towards my, immediate left, that is Suresh Vangarajan. We know, with automation, digital platforms, and other innovations are basically changing the fundamental nature of industry and also the Industry 4.0 skills. But what role can universities and higher education institutes play in bringing the gap between Industry 4.0? We can reflect this from higher education perspective, and also we can talk from a primary education perspective. So this question is to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just want to add the point about distance learning, and I want to reflect a couple of my own personal examples. About 8 months ago, I was at IIM Bangalore giving a lecture, and they were in a batch of 90 students which were from admitted in July 2020. There were only 20 in the class, and there were 70 who were attending it remote. I was very, very curious to find out why they were remote, and they felt it was unsafe to come to the class. And this was March 2022. And they were just about 3 months away from getting graduation from IIM Bangalore without coming to the campus. And I felt really, really sad as to what was happening to this country and the way distance learning has taken a completely different turn, right? I mean, MBA was all about networking, campus, experiences, and people had spent 21 months sitting out of home. And the funnier part was, out of the 70, there were 15 of them who were sitting in the IIM Bangalore campus hostel, but did not come to the classroom. That was even worse, right? I mean, because they thought that it was unsafe to walk within the campus and meet me, as if I was some alien that would have eaten them up. So that's the current state, and we need to, we can't take this to the other extreme, right? And another quick example, there was 7th grader nephew who refused to go to school because he was very, very comfortable. He didn't need to catch the bus. He didn't need to wake up early. He didn't need to shower in the morning. He could always be with the phone. He could be under the blanket and attend the class. So I think, I can empathize with all the HR professionals here who are trying to get their teams back. But I think technology has to intervene in a large sense. And people have to understand that productivity tools have to be built to track. And that is what the primary education, higher education, all of us have to realize, that that's what is going to determine how and things are going to change in the next 5-7 years. Whatever mistakes we have done in 2020, the effect of that is going to be seen in 2030. It is not going to be seen in today's era. We are all happy that, it's all very comfortable sitting at home, moving from one bedroom to the other bedroom. But the productivity tools have to be implemented very, very fast, because today we are talking about bottomless pit of content, and people can get zoned into that content, scrolling Instagram all the time, right? So there are too many distractions which are there today, which were not there 10 years ago. And added to the fact that you are not productive enough is going to kill the nation and its productivity and its GDP in the next 7-10 years. And before that, I think the higher education and the primary education people have to step in to figure out what kind of tools have to be built in, right? I mean, that's the most important defining thing that has to happen very, very quickly in the next 12, 18, 24 months for us to see the, the mistakes that have got committed, or, some natural disasters and some man-made mistakes that have happened. So I think it's very important for us to, I always say this to my team, right? To fix a problem, you need to identify it first. And you need to identify that very, very early at this point in time, that technology bridge in terms of productivity has to be built very, very quickly. I hope I have answered.
Thank you. Let me reconstitute this question for you. Let me put a more challenging question to you. During COVID, I got to read more about artificial intelligence, because you talk about entrance exams. I think every possible entrance exam was struggling because they didn't conceive an AI proctored assessment and exams, because nobody knew something like that exists. Because I know CLAT didn't happen, that is a common law admission test, did not happen for many months because they did not know how to conduct within the four walls. They all had a physical exam, but they did not know how to do an online exam. But let me ask you this very important question. So at that time, I was reading about a very interesting technology called AI-driven cars, right? So AI-driven cars, people said that it is going to replace the drivers, and 2016, 2018, it was already a phenomenon in US. We're talking post-COVID, but even before COVID, AI-driven cars were already a phenomenon there. But because of COVID, I started reading about it. I was talking about automation. I was reading about dependence on technology. Do you think, under the given scenario of Industry 4.0, automation, what we say as dependence on technology, are we close to see a AI-driven car? Because I see that the policy framework, like for example, in 2016, when an accident actually took place where the car was on an AI mode, the name of the technology was Wakabayashi in the state of Arizona, the entire lawmakers were coming to find out who's going to be liable for such an accident. Are you going to catch the coders who are coding, or are you going to make the people who bought the software? Uber was a company which integrated Wakabayashi with the Uber system. They all had to remove and go back. Are we close? Do you see that Industry 4.0 pushing technology and automation to such a stage? Are we going to see this, or it is going to take some time, or are we really overemphasizing on Industry 4.0 and automation and technology here?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. So before I answer that question, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Vishwas Mudgal, and I'm the CEO for GoodWorks Group. And we build tech for world's top companies across the world. And fortunately, when I'm talking about it, we are building tech for Mercedes-Benz. And we are a big technology partner for Mahindra Group as well. So I'm practically doing exactly what you're telling me right now.
That's why I asked you that question.
We are one of the people who are actually working on connected cars, and GoodWorks as a group, we are primarily focused on building tech, and also we have exposure to real estate and education industry as well. So if you want me to really in a quick nutshell, talk about technology, how fast it's growing. It is phenomenal, the way we are growing. And I think we can look at about in the next 3 to 5 years, having totally autonomous cars, which will be there in the roads across the world. I'm not sure about India though. So it's going to be a while, I think, in India, because there's a lot of other regulatory aspects here. But especially in the matured economy, and we have people following the right rules. I think there definitely we will have autonomous cars. But one thing I think can happen in India is, instead of autonomous cars, we can look at autonomous flying taxis. That can happen faster in India. Just like the way I think India skipped directly to like 3G, 4G. We skipped a lot of this innovation. We got into UPI directly. So I don't think that we should look at autonomous cars. We should look at autonomous taxis, air taxis, basically, because our roads are pathetic. You cannot correct them. Rather than that, just focus on flying machines that can be automated, right? So I think India is all about thinking out of the box. We should not do just what the rest of the world is doing. We should never do that. That's exactly what I focus on. In everything we do, we have a simple thing that we focus on the DNA. Question the status quo. Question the status quo. That's very critical. Otherwise, it's always about doing what the Western people are doing. Why the hell we should do exactly what they're doing? We don't have to. We do what we have to do. This is India's century. This is not the Western century. This is India's century. So we got to do it. That reminds me of that elephant on the rope story. I'm not sure how many of you guys have read it. So it's very simple. So there is a girl, tiny girl, and with her father they go to one of the Southeast Asian countries, Thailand or somewhere basically. And they see these huge elephants tied with jute ropes basically. And then this child asks to the mahot there, Ki, this is such a big beast. Why is it tied with like simple jute ropes? Shouldn't be they, tied with like iron kind of, chains basically. So then the mahot, he smiles and he says, he takes her to another corner and he shows a small calf, okay? And then the calves are being tied with, the steel chains. And she's surprised, these small calves are being tied with steel chains and the bigger elephants are being tied with ropes. What is it? Why is it happening like this? So then he explains, when they are small, they tie them with steel, okay? Then they try to escape. They try their best to escape. They cannot. They try, they try for a couple of years and they give up in their mind. And when they give up in their mind, then they start replacing this steel chains with jute. And when they replace it with jute, the elephant never tries to escape. So even though it can basically ram through like any kind of barricade, it never dares to even break the jute rope. So now compare yourself with that. You are basically being taught to just go to the school, get good marks, go to your college, get a good placement, go on there in the workforce, get better salary, then your family is going to force you to get married. After that, your family is going to ask you to get a kid. Then they say one is not enough, have two. Then people are going to ask you, okay, do you have a house? You're going to say no. Then they're going to brand you worthless. Then you're going to take a home loan. Then you're going to take an apartment. You're going to spend 1 or 2 crore in a city like Bangalore. EMI of 1 or 2 lakhs. Do you think you can take risks? Do you think you can innovate? Your risk-taking ability has gone through the window. So this is what the philosophy has been, the society has been setting you up for. That is what you need to break. Industry 4.0 is, or anything that you're innovating out there, is all about you guys thinking out of the box, breaking through a rut right now. That is what you need to focus on. That is the true innovation that you guys need to focus on.
Thank you. Thank you. I think is absolutely right that, Industry 4.0 is just a setup. It is for us to actually use that, setup to explore, experiment, and innovate and create. Let me ask, I think, Thirukumaran, an extended question of this. We know that Industry 4.0 is coming, and we are part of that. It is also evident the seriousness of the situation that we are in. But how do you think corporate organizations like yours, along with educational institutions, can create a sense of urgency in upskilling? The reason why I'm connecting this Industry 4.0 and to the question of upskilling is, when we know we need to automate, we know, this are the era of new technologies, how, when we educate, the universities do not go and ask what is the curriculum that ought to be taught, what is the relevant curriculum that needs to be taught. And when the industries are, recruiting, they don't ask that question to the university, what are you teaching and why I need to recruit from here. And this is just happening as a day-to-day affair. But don't you think so in the space of Industry 4.0, this collaboration needs to be properly defined, properly aligned, and what are your responses?
Sure. So I'll try to mix the two. I work for IBM. We have about 100,000 employees in India approximately. And I'm giving you this background so you can get context. But I have a team of 27 HR partners only. Let's just do the math. So about 27 people serve a lakh workforce from a business partnering perspective. That is absolutely not possible without technology, AI, ML, intelligent platforms, communication channels that are multi-channeled. When you operate in such an environment, and I love what Suresh and Vishwas actually talked about, and you heard from our predecessors as well in the keynote, whether we like it or not, technology is here to stay. I will bet that in 10 years from now, you don't need an HR function. I'll take the contrarian route. You might need few to be able to speak to, get advice. But we've not built an organization in HR in order to reduce cost, to drive any other productivity-only behaviors. It's centered around experience. Everything is about employee experience, leadership experience, management experience, and ultimately, when you want to speak, and this is an HR conclave, and I'll talk a little bit about HR tech and how we operate, and then the skills that are required from universities to be able to adopt. As a manager, and you should relate to this in your own industries, why do you talk to HR? You might want to hire somebody, you want to give somebody a raise, you want to promote someone, you want to transfer someone. All of that, today they don't need to speak to anybody in our company. Hiring, yes, of course. But if you need, just to give you an example, we have a platform we work in a tech company, fortunately, so we can experiment. We actually push the boundaries of possibility. Because, just think about it. Your last best experience that you have anywhere in the world becomes the minimum expectation of standard for all future experiences that you will want to encounter in the future. Because you'll always be able to relate to the best experience you've had. So when you apply that thinking to a simple transaction in HR, you want to give somebody a raise. So this person would call on a phone, a simple number like an IVR, you can call it. It's AI driven. It immediately recognizes who is calling because you authenticate yourself because it's a secure process. How can I help you? And this is an agent speaking. It's a digital agent, an assistant. I'd like to give Suresh a raise. Okay, can you authenticate Suresh? And he says, yeah, I'd like to, let's say, transfer him to Vishwas. So it just confirms who Suresh is and says, okay, I'd like to give him a 15% raise. The agent immediately recognizes Suresh's skill. It looks at the value of that skill for your company, the scarcity of skills in the industry, and says, hey, Suresh is a deep cloud architect. Perhaps you might want to consider a 25% raise. And it's not a human being speaking. It's data and analytics that's running at the background, understanding Suresh's profile, and recommending to you as a manager saying, think about what you're suggesting. It's also looking at about 60 or 70 different data points. Where is Suresh positioned in terms of his peers, the experiences that he's had, the potential he has to further grow, the kind of risks that he's taken in terms of doing multiple projects, various other algorithms that are running at the background. You're not talking to a human being, but an intelligent agent is actually recommending to you something higher than what you had actually envisioned. You say, yes. Do you have approvals for it? Yes. Confirm? Yes. It's done. Now, when you speak to a human being in your respective companies, just think how long would you think in an out-of-cycle scenario can you actually get this simple transaction done? 1 week, 10 days, a month, or possibly never at all. Whereas here, you could be doing this while you're driving your car home in a matter of 3 minutes. So the experience of human resource transactions that you encounter every day is far different from how it used to happen many years ago. I took a simple example. You can apply this to so many other everyday HR transactions that you will encounter in our everyday life as HR professionals. So the skills that you need to think about is, one is, of course, you have to be able to be very comfortable with analytics, the ability to solve problems, the ability to build relationships, and you got to be able to have business acumen. So if you ask me, all the traditional foundational aspects of HR, which today gets taught in university, is possibly a nice to have, because you probably will forget 10%, you'll forget 90%, you'll retain 10%. Eventually, everybody here in this room who's academically qualified in HR are not the only HR professionals that companies hire. I'll be honest with you. I've been a chef in my previous life. I've been a sculptor in my previous life. I had HR. I think at the end of the day, the skills that you need to solve human problems are slightly different. You've got to have a growth mindset. You have to be able to continuously learn great communication skills, great listening skills, understand before being understood, and you have to know your business. So I think, someone mentioned to me, the CEO and the CHRO are like the power couple. You got to know your business. The business leader needs to know your people, and together they pretty much would, solve problems for the company, help the company grow, etc. So HR is no more an administrative aspect of managing transactions. It's about solving problems. It's about selflessly helping people. It's about creating great experiences for all of the people in your company. Those are the things I would relate to, and that will come with experience, and that will come when people have various experiences. So your perspectives are very broad. It is no more organizational hierarchy down, very flat organizations, and you're able to have an empowered decision making. So I think you should feel very, very comfortable in working in a matrix, the ability to take risks and decisions on your own. Those are the skills that truly will help you sustain in the longer term in the Industry 4.0 environment, because you've got to be able to comfortably thrive with technology and less human being.
Thank you.
That's my view.
Thank you. I will invite for questions at the end. You can note it down. Let me reiterate one very important thing. I read a lot about IBM. I don't know how many of you know that a decade back, IBM released what is called as IBM Watson, the first AI artificial intelligence lawyer, which basically could calculate permutation combinations based on, you feed in the provision of law, you feed in the lawyers, you feed in the judges. It would help you to determine where and whose side the case is, and also the lawyer would do 80% of the work of the lawyer, right? It's called the IBM Watson. I hope I keep reading about it, and as more I read about it, it just goosebumps, the kind of technology they've built. But still, there are other skills which are required, like negotiation skills, mediation skills, which a mission may not be able to pull it out, right? So that brings me to the next question, and this question is for Vishwas, and I would want Vishwas to reflect. We'll finish the first panel speakers, We know upskilling sounds great in theory, right? But when you look at, as a fact, when you look at the employment opportunities that get generated, it normally gets generated by a lot of small business organizations. They don't accept, recognize, or rely on certifications
that specify or signal how skilled you are, right? What role do you think universities and these organizations should play to combat that? Because sometimes we emphasize these skills needs to be formalized, these skills need to be supplied, somebody has to give you a certification that you have these skills. Others you say, no, it's not required. You don't need to go and tell the world that you are certified with these skills. But then how is it in real? Are we speaking about the need of these skills as part of Industry 4.0, or is it just a myth?
That's real actually. The major issue is that when people come into the industry, when they come to us basically to work from the colleges, they practically we cannot deploy them on projects. That is a big issue. So it literally takes us like about 6 months to 1 year for them to be productive. So that is a main issue right now. So for example, if they are into tech, they are learning computer science. So they're just learning some basic stuff there and they don't understand how to implement that into a industry scenario. Or they don't understand what is like it is to work in like a Scrum teams, for example, or they don't know what is a Jira or how to use a Slack or how Git works, or I'm not sure how many of you guys are from tech here, but all these things are like it's like it takes them like 3 to 4 months just to understand how to do. So these are very easily manageable in college itself. So that's the reason why, of course, we also GoodWorks. We launched NetSkill as that's our EdTech startup we've come up with. We're working with colleges right now to take the industry knowledge back to the college, where we are teaching them some certain basics, like they are like ABC in industry, but in colleges it's never taught because in the faculty also doesn't understand it there. Neither the curriculum is even understanding it, right? So that is where we are trying to bridge this gap. And this Industry 4.0 is like combination of a lot of skills. Like you got cloud, and then you are generating a lot of data from these machines. So you have like IoT, and then that data is going through a pipeline. So that is like the big data pipeline, and then they're going into the cloud, and then in the cloud you have the whole infrastructure, like your AWS or Azure and all of that. How to manage that data, and then there is making sense of that out of data through machine learning, right? So, and then basically after that, it's about analytics. How we, basically take the data and make decisions out of it, right? Because all these things are important for anything that we are going to do in the future. So be it smart factories or the digital twins that we're talking about, or be it autonomous cars or whatever we're trying to do. And even even HR folks, like for example, what he was telling, so even HR folks need to understand these skills. So these things, not only for tech or engineering courses, this industry bridging, going to the college has to happen in all the fields, including the MBAs and even the medical sciences. They need to know how to use machines. For example, now we also work with a lot of healthcare providers, including Medtronic and all the other companies who provide the medical equipment. So doctors need to know how to work with AI, basically, right? Because that's what the future is going to be. Everything is going to be enabled by tech. So I think that bridging is yet not happened. So that is what I think that is very much doable. I think that is now the industry is waking up to it, and it is going to happen.
Thank you. Let me rephrase that question to you, Suresh. This is a very important question for me as a takeaway when I go back to my university. Does Industry 4.0 call for industry curated courses at universities and institutions? Is it a need today that we need to ask the industry to come and curate courses where the curriculum, where the course content is not only just defined, but also taught by some of the industry leaders? What is your response to that?
I know it's a controversial statement, right? I mean, I've never applied anything that I've studied, right? I mean, so that's true for many people, and it's very true for me, right? So what are we learning? What are we learning in schools, high schools, colleges, universities, MBAs, and then coming into the industry? So I think absolutely right. I know you're on the other side. We don't want to, we don't want to be fighting here. You're too close. You're the boss. Your hands are pretty long. So, but the most important point is I think it's the need of the hour. We need to customize courses based on what is practically being used at each of these industries. And industry, like there are big recruiters, right? I mean, there is an Accenture or an IBM. You should actually ask them to come and spend 3 months in the campus, because rather than the kids going there and doing the internship, it should be the other way around. I think we need to implement these changes very, very fast for getting good quality resources out there who are, I mean, obviously day zero is not the best day for them to start working, but at the earliest, I think if we are able to crunch it by 100 days, by getting them to learn what they need to learn on campus rather than in offices, I think it's going to benefit the industry much more, right? And people will start liking their jobs better as well. That's the most important thing, right? Today they're grappling as to what they need to do once they land an office. And people leave jobs. I mean, always we talk about the frustration. It's like the first 100 days, right? You settle in a job, you'll start loving, and then you never leave that kind of a job. So do you not want to tell them before they actually land in the first day, right? And figure out what they want to do? I think colleges need to quickly change and figure out what is the right path and package it with the industry, and especially the big recruiters, people who recruit thousands of people. I think they need to take responsibility and partner with you to make sure that the content is relevant before they get out of college.
Thank you. Your final words on industry-curated curriculum before I pass on and invite my moderator.
Now, here's a validation of what both the speakers said. In my company, for this year, for all the HR professionals, in addition to the behavioral education that we are a continuously learning company, I'll tell you 6 different badges, digital credentials that every HR professional has to achieve at different levels of proficiency. One is on cybersecurity. As you mentioned, you got to know how data is secure in the cloud. Deep analytics, which is actually built on Tableau, because you have to work on analytics on a daily basis. AI ethics and transparency. You have to understand how AI works and earn about trust and ethic when you work with AI. You could choose cloud or data as an optional one. And lastly, we work on Slack. So on how you collaborate with Slack, how do you manage projects on Trello, and other collaboration platforms, because those are the skills you will require to succeed and do your job, fundamentally do your job. In addition to HR subjects which are domain specific, which is a given actually. So I just wanted to end by saying it is not for the future, it's here and now, and that's what we have to do.
Thank you. Round of applause to all the 3 panelists, please. Now I would request Tanushree to lead the moderation, and Vishwas, the other 2 speakers, if you have time, if you can spare some more time and respond to some Q&A at the end of the session, yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Padmanabhan and the panelists. Hello and warm welcome to everyone once again. We now transit to the second theme of the panel discussion here, which is upskill to upscale, creating a timeless workforce. So there was a song, Times They Are A-Changing, which Bob Dylan sang in 1964 perhaps. Times have always been changing. Change has always been a norm. Perhaps what is different now is the scale of change and the frequency of the change. It is exponential now. It took the world quite a while to traverse a journey from Industry 1.0 to Industry 2.0 to Industry 3.0. And we are already hearing some voices whispering Industry 5.0 as we try to grapple with the challenges thrown by Industry 4.0, especially with respect to human capacities and human capabilities or human skills. It may sound very obvious, and I understand it is almost stating the obvious, that technology has altered the work and workplace completely. Newer jobs are emerging, older jobs are getting replaced, and very, very new and different kinds of jobs are getting generated. But something is very interesting to note, and that is what has been said by the World Economic Forum, that 30% of future jobs don't yet exist. In that case, it becomes all the more imperative to create a timeless workforce. I would like to know from the panelists, what are some of the thoughts around creating a timeless workforce, some internal thoughts and some internal actions, which has already been initiated in industry? And may I start from my immediate right, please?
Thank you. My name is Rajiv. I work with the Printers Mysore. Printers Mysore, none of you may recognize, but Deccan Herald. Yeah, you will recognize the name Deccan Herald and Prajavani. I work there. Yeah. I would, timeless workforce is an easy thing. If you stick to basics, basics will never change. Whatever I speak would be from the news media perspective. Sorry. The perspective would be news. So pardon me for that. And you can extrapolate it to the other industries. For us, the basics would be top line 2-3 things. As a fresher, people need to have a good language skills. Very hard to find, very, very hard. People cannot write 5 clear sentences without using the WhatsApp shortcuts. They just can't do it, and you can't write that in a newspaper. You need to know what makes a good news. News sense is what we call. Third most important thing is making use of the right technology. We all grew up with WordStar. Most probably none of you will know it. And VPP Plus, again, nobody will even realize that. There is a lot of technology which is already there, but those basics will still remain the same. Like if you are good with your MS Office, you know how to do your work properly, then the question is already answered. Like the timeless people or the timeless skill is already generated. If you knew how to type, you know how to type in a WordStar, you know how to type in MS Word, and then create a good article out of it. I would, stick to that. I would end by saying the basics need to be taken care properly, and I think the academia will play a large role in that. Plus, the industry and the academia partnership cannot end at the conclaves and internships, and of course some immersion programs. It cannot end there. There has to be a curated curriculum every 3 to 5 years, which need to be, redeveloped to ensure that what is relevant for the industry at this point of time is being taught in the colleges, campus.
Thank you, Mr. Rajiv. And may I now invite some thoughts, your perspectives on the same question, creating a timeless workforce. The moment you say it, it sounds something gigantic, something Herculean. So it would be good if you can also share some of your perspectives on creating timeless workforce. And may I invite Ms. Asha Narayan to share her perspectives on it first.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Since this is an HR conclave, probably I could share some inputs which is more relevant to HR professionals. I truly believe as HR professionals, we need to ensure that problem solving as a skill is developed. And this happens right from college, right from the different organizations that you work. But when you're studying, there are so many case studies you work, you try to understand, and you kind of break down, and that's kind of problem solving, which you will actually do it in a corporate space. The second thing I want to talk about is writing skills. Gone are the days where we used to focus on presentation skills, where it's just a PPT and you talk about your ideas. Now it's all about narratives. How deep are your thoughts in terms of the ideas that you want to create? What impact you want to create for the organization? What innovation do you bring in as HR leaders to the organization? And tech has a huge role to play. We have enough anecdotes shared by the other panel members on how tech is evolving constantly, and we have to change with the times. Just to give you an example, each year that I've been in across different organizations, I've gone through at least 2 to 3 tech transformations myself. And what I have to do is keep adapting. I have to keep learning each year with the new technologies that come. So we are equally involved in this tech transformation as HR professionals, and we need to keep abreast of the latest technologies. We should know what's happening, what's in terms of analytics, AI, how we can automate our processes, how we can make it simpler. And that's something which can create a timeless workforce, right? We want to make the menial jobs lesser, and we want it to be more strategic. We want it to be more helpful to our customers. That is our ultimate goal. So I would emphasize on focus on these aspects, and I'm sure it would help the HR professionals.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your insights. Over to you. Yes, you wanted to say something. You may please add.
Yeah, can I add to this?
Sure,
So-
please, feel free.
So timeless workforce, I think it's a beautiful phrase, and something that I'm hearing for the first time. But of course, we're living this as we go
Right.
through our lives. But I can quote some examples, at least from my own home, right? And we talk about skills being the new currency, and that's what's going to keep us in good stead as we go forward. And I have a 19-year-old, and he just finished his 12th earlier this year during the pandemic. He's decided not to go to college, right? And we talk about the future of work. We talk about the gig economy, and he's a full-time video production, post-production artist. He set up his own studio, and he's extremely confident of what he wants to do in his future, right? And talking about, when I go to industry forums, I talk about the future of work and gig economy, and I can see that actually unraveling in my own household, right? So skills, I think, is what will keep people in good stead in the long term, and no matter what we say, right? And it's really about skills, your confidence, and your risk-taking ability. I think the CPO of Mindtree spoke about, he made a call to action saying, do not get into the tech industry and tech bandwagon, all of you.
Yeah.
Do other things. And that is actually happening as we speak. The new generation is extremely adventurous. They are restless. They are not going to be settling for anything that is going to be monotonous, and they get bored very easily. So I think the timeless workforce thing is actually happening. I don't think we're realizing it as much, but new generation is actually making change happen at a much faster pace.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Please. Please do. Thank you.
So I'm from manufacturing sector. So one of the statistics I heard that roughly about half of the youth that comes out of our educational institutions are employable. All those guys want to go in tech. So we have to hire the half that is not employable. So we end up spending time making them employable for us, and I represent the industry as a whole, and then they find ways out. So for them, they are already doing the timeless part of it. But here, we need to focus a little bit back in the chain of education. So when you talk about higher education, I think the root education needs to overhaul itself. The pace of change we are witnessing is unprecedented.
Right.
When was the last time primary education curriculum reflected what's going on in the world? And more than the content itself, the way it is taught. So it still is very largely instructive, memory and regurgitating based. We used to call it Rattamaro, and on the day of the exam, and then forget about it. I think that is still by and large happening. Of course, you have newer curriculums like IB, IGE, but they are not accessible to a very large population, right? So something needs to happen at a grassroots level, because we need to focus from just focusing on the what, because that's what our instructive education still does, and get people to think in terms of how to find it, where to look for it, and what to do with it once I find it. So the fundamental nature of education has to be create curiosity. But the spoon feeding that happens in the first 13 years, from first to 10th or whatever, that, and then of course the universities and industries, any industry, have to do a lot of work, because the answer is common across. You take banking, you take finance, you take tech, manufacturing. First 1 year, the guy doesn't come up with, the person is not able to come up with output, and it's wrong to expect that. So there is, in order for us to say timelessness, certain fundamentals need to be improved, ability to unlearn, ability to deal with ambiguity. When you do very crystal clear instructive education, you are really killing that curiosity. And it's good to hear, it's a heartening story, and there are many examples like what Sajay you mentioned, but they are all urban. You will not find them in 90% of our population, and that's not enough. So there's something that needs to happen at a much more grassroots level.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think you have very clearly brought out some of the fault lines in the education system, right from the primary schooling to the higher education. I'm just wondering, and I'm very curious to know about it, what kind of partnership you foresee between academia and industry to address some of these issues? I mean, I do understand you did mention about some of the skills, like ability to handle uncertainty and ambiguity, making them a little curious and inculcating them in the sense of unlearning too. So these are some of the focus areas that you have highlighted. In addition to it, because I mean, I'm pulling a thread from what the previous panelist has said about industry and academia coming together to address this issue of equipping people with the needed skills of the time. Yes.
I just want to add a quick thing to, so all of us are familiar with CS. What is CS? Anybody here? Sorry? Sorry? Okay, computer science. Anything else? BE, Bachelor of Engineering, CS. Computer science, right? That's what it comes. I think we have to add 1 semester of common sense. People don't seem to have it, right? I mean, that's lacking. That practical knowledge, which is what is required on the job, is missing. Again, I don't want to sound controversial here, But colleges and educational institutions don't seem to teach that. Common sense is what is going to, my children didn't listen to me, but I said I took drama in school, and that's what has helped me right through my life, right? When I went to my boss, I acted. When I got married, I acted. With my children, I continue to act. With parents, I continue to act. In the boardroom, I continue to act, right? I mean, drama is a skill. I mean, it helps you, face many situations. So common sense, drama, acting skills, speaking, very, very important. Where is it being taught to engineering students? Don't they need to speak? Don't they need to interact? So, I mean, sorry to butt in, but...
No, that's something very, very important, I guess. Yes, please.
No, he's absolutely right. And with what's happened, as it is, our education system was not strong on soft skills.
Yes.
And with remote learning, we have reduced it a little bit more. So you're absolutely right. But your question was, what can be done?
Yes.
One thing is that we don't have a choice. I don't think it's now a matter of choice. Industry can't afford to spend a year or two on its resources to get them to give output, because the rest of the world doesn't need to.
Right.
So now, as Vishwa said, this is the stage. India is a stage. We can't wait 2 years, a year, 6 months for the output to happen. So any industry, regardless of what sector it is, has to do this, whether one wants to or not. And one thing about India is, करना पड़ेगा तो कुछ ना कुछ निकाल देंगे. I mean, that creativity we have.
Right.
So, एक रास्ता निकल जाएगा. That we have always been like that. And it is happening at university level.
Right.
By large corporation. It just needs to go further
Percolate
down
downwards.
into the early part of it.
Right.
And that's an easier step, because it's simpler part to actually fix. We just need to go to the right starting point.
You know, this word creativity has triggered a thought in my mind, and I've been thinking about it for quite a while, and now here is this opportunity to bounce it off you. How about mutual internship between industry and academia? Employees go and work in academia, and faculty members go and replace them for a certain period. So what are your thoughts about this mutual internship? Is it a possibility, or is it too far-fetched a thought?
I don't think it is too far-fetched, because a portion of it is already happening, what was in engineering days called the sandwich program. So in the third and the fourth semester, a third and the fourth year, half semester the student is studying, the other half he's actually working. It didn't take off at a grand level, it was only select courses, but this is 25 years ago, it was happening.
Right. So my question is slightly different, if you please allow me to rephrase it. I said, why are we limiting it only to students? Why not employees from industry go and serve academia, and faculty members from academia are given opportunity to have an internship in industry?
I would welcome it, and I think you had mentioned it, that why shouldn't IBM go and spend time at the campus? And I think that's the thread, and they're doing it. So it's not far-fetched, and it's not far away either. It's just not as much as we would need it to be. But
right.
I think Tanushri's question on, okay, we have industry-curated curriculum, but how can faculty who are already part of this university institution can also upskill, right? I think one culture which I really want to, talk that could be beneficial to all of us is incubation, where industry and academia incubate together, right? I think that research culture, as much as we speak, as much as it is important, it actually does not exist.
Yes.
The collaborative research impetus that is actually required, where faculty and industry collaborate, where students and industry collaborate, where industry and research centers in the institution collaborate, is actually not happening to the level that it should significantly happen. I don't want to sound very, not practical, but if you see, like for example, I was teaching at Pennsylvania Law School a few years back, and I went to Wharton just to understand how their Wharton Incubation Center works. I was so surprised to see the kind of billion-dollar companies that have come out of their incubation. Like, for example, the QS World Ranking was called as a top ranking website, and it was basically an MBA student who wanted to basically provide a solution to the answer, how do business students go about selecting their business school, was the hypothesis. That led to Nunzio creating what is called as top ranking website, giving an understanding how business institutions could be assessed. And today it is a QS World Ranking, which every university wants to be ranked or assessed because they want to know where and how it should be ranked. It's $1 billion company. But the idea is the seeds were laid by a student wanting to answer a question that was so prevalent in the industry, was very important for everybody. So the industry and I would say the faculty collaborative research, I think under Industry 4.0 is not happening to the extent it should happen.
Absolutely.
That's the one thing which
Absolutely. The reciprocity and the innovative possibilities of collaborating together to address this point, which impacts not only industry and academia, but society as a whole. So, Mr. Rajiv wanted to add a point to the existing conversation. You may please.
I would only say one thing, if the industry is not interested to collaborate with the academia, don't crib about great talent not coming out. Why don't we make, as an industry, 5% of the KRA for the leaders to go and teach in the academia. They have to spend their, say, 2 hours, 3 hours a week, or 2 hours a month. If we can start looking at that aspect, then we have every right to crib. If not, we just need to grapple with what we have right now.
Thank you so much. Sorry? Okay. I can pass with this mic to you.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I agree with what you've said. But without being too critical, we've come a long way. I want to also, talk about the positive. From what we as a generation studied in school, the opportunities we got and the quality of education we had was of a different standard. The students and our children that are experiencing education today is way, way modern. We've come a significantly long way. So I want to acknowledge that as well. Yeah. And I also want to say, today we have, as we speak, almost 50 IBMers in academic institutions for exactly the same reasons of helping, mentoring faculty and doing joint research, more on the engineering and technology side, not necessarily in HR. But I agree with Mr. Rajiv that unless we take an initiative to go and engage, we'll continue to be a commercial, ruthless enterprise.
Right.
Right.
True. So this actually is very actionable thoughts, doing something about it, introducing this as one of the KRAs of the leaders. Right, so maybe please allow me a little digression here. I would like to take up a new... the last question here. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, we talk about digital skills, technical skills, and we have laid a lot of emphasis in this conversation as well. Ability to work with AI, machine learning, deep learning, so on and so forth. What about soft skills? And secondly, please allow me to club it with another question. The shelf life of skills is reducing now. So, what would be your advice to youngsters, to fresh graduates, how they can equip themselves, I would also seek your opinion on what universities and higher educational institutions can do about, focusing on the right kind of skill sets having the mosaic of skill set which is actually needed, which addresses the point of shorter skill shelf life and also the softer skills, which perhaps these days, as they say, are equally important, if not more. Yeah, so would like to hear from you on this.
Thanks. I'm Shajai. I lead a community management platform. It's part of the Anurag Group, and we service multiple organizations and countries. You won't believe it, but I think this entire skill set is a little bit overrated, primarily because of the fact that we don't get the right skills from the education institutes that we go for. So I practically hire basis attitude, and I think soft skill of attitude is extremely important. The attitude to grow, the attitude to collaborate, the attitude to communicate, and the attitude to survive in unsustainable circumstances, right? We have accountants who are actually selling SaaS software. Can you imagine how tough that is for an accountant who's possibly done a BCom degree and come in, and they are actually possibly selling it to communities. We have technicians, engineers, and a lot of stuff was said about the IT guys, and the kind of skill sets they have. They're actually sitting in front of clients and trying to decode how to make their accounting spreadsheets better, right? Now, how more, I would say, vaguer can it get? It's all because of the attitude that these young folks need to carry with them to their job. And that's how they will be successful. I would say that it's most important for them to understand that there is going to be a dichotomy in the careers that they have chosen. There is always going to be some amount of fluster, a positive attitude, great communication skills, collaboration, teamwork, and a microscopic understanding, not just a skimmed understanding, a microscopic understanding of the product that they are selling, of the client that they are gearing up for is important, right? So in my opinion, that's the biggest skill that one can carry. And I think it's the duty of the academia to actually inculcate a great attitude, because most of these kids are coming in from backgrounds which they are insecure, which they are not confident enough to face, a rough industry. And I think if the academia can actually empower them, give them the confidence to go out and be successful. I think most of it is learnt. Some of my colleagues on the panel were talking about the fact that the not enough output and in the first year, and I completely agree with that. But how do you get people to get output? I mean, you get them to get output when they are confident enough to give it, right? So give them security, give them the fact that they have a great attitude, give them growth factors, pump that in, and I think they should be successful.
Yeah, I think soft skills are the new hard skills. And you may be a great technology professional, you may be a great programmer, but what good is it if you cannot be a great team player? What good is it if you cannot empathize with your customer, right? What good is your skill if you cannot understand what is being said? What good is it if you cannot take feedback or give feedback, right? It's really the soft skills at the end of the day. I mean, you may have excellent hard skills, but you need empathy, you need the learning agility, you need you need to be willing to be flexible. These are all skill sets that are absolutely necessary these days, right? And that's what I think the industry is looking for going forward, and even on an ongoing basis. And that's what I would say, because that is the most important thing, not the hard skills alone, right?
One last talk. So spot on both of them what they said. Only thing I would add, as far as academia is concerned, where we as industry can benefit and the resources coming out, the ability for critical reading to separate relevance from noise. And that will allow them to go for critical thinking. And this is not really not addressed anywhere. They end up finding out at the workplace in a very, very tough way. And all of us have gone through it probably in our own careers. So as far as hiring, what Sajay said, spot on. This is that, I mean, everyone really does that. So.
So maybe, thank you so much, everyone. So the takeaway for us as academicians would be, and I think all of you have said it unequivocally, and to sum it up, 4 or 5 C's to begin with. First C, that is common sense. Collaborative approach, creativity, curiosity, and critical thinking. So these should be the focus areas. A lot of emphasis should be laid on inculcating these skills in fresh graduates. So thank you very much for sharing your insights and perspectives with us. So yes, as I said, it is imperative for both academia and industry to come together to address the changing requirements, especially with regard to human capability, capacity, and abilities. Thank you so much. And now we open this house to audience. If you have any question, you may please feel free to ask. We take a couple of questions.
We'll
Will that
take
be
2
okay?
questions and quickly respond. I think I don't want to delay you for the dinner. If it is okay, we'll take 3 questions, I think. I see 3 hands. Yep.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's great. Right, so first of all, I would like to, put a round of applause to such a great audience, such a great panelist. I think, really amazing. Really amazing, and thanks to JGU Conclave that we are able to get to know so many things about that. Now, my question is more of an intrapreneurship. We talked about, we know about entrepreneurship and all that thing are very, very common nowadays. But now, Industry 4.0, how are we, making ourselves equipped with entrepreneurship? Any best practice would you like to share with the people? Any of the corporate or any of, HR professional, if you want to share certain best practice related to entrepreneurship. Thank you.
This is a standard practice that we do. We really encourage people to create their own products. I think the product managers are the most important. They are the heart of any organization. I'm not saying this because 2 of my product managers are in the audience, not to please them and steal some increment from them, but I genuinely believe that product creators are going to be the heart of any organization, and they have to be empowered, saying that if you come up with something which is even very different from our business line, I will go out and fund it, right? Either from the company or my personal network, but I will go out, and that's when that entire innovation starts happening, right? And you have to encourage people with structures. These guys won't know what kind of structures are possible. So that's what we constantly do in our organization. In my last 15 years, 3 startups, I'm so happy that I've at least created close to 7 or 8 spin-offs, smaller, one of them really larger than the company that I ran. So I'm very happy that and if you see that 100% record has been with product managers. So they are the ones who are thinkers and they can come up with new things, but structure is something that you need to support them on.
Thank you.
I can add
Yes,
that
please.
as HR professionals, how we try to spurn creativity, entrepreneurship. As an example, one, you got to have diverse teams, people who think differently with different mindsets. And what we do regularly is actually run hackathons. And we call it hackathons, but it's how do you solve real world problems? For profit, non-profit. And it could be anything that is a genuine real world problem today. You place it in front of your employees. They form their own teams. And to Shajoy's point, I mean, we've hired actually ballet dancers and gymnasts to be HR partners, because we hire for passion, because they learn the job, but the ability to excel in something is something. So I just wanted to say, you got to have diverse teams. You'll get great perspectives. Entrepreneurship is all about ideation and the ability to create an idea that will result in a problem being solved. It could be monetized. It Could be not for profit as well. So I just thought I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Ullas here. So I just have one question, or maybe it's my thought process. So in today's changing world, maybe the entire, what I personally feel is the entire ecosystem is different. I mean, it's not like what it was 20 years back, but now the ecosystem is totally different. So now the entire debate was like, is the education system up to the industry, or there is a gap and all that, debate. But is the industry really updated, or, what I feel being in the recruitment industry in the last 13 years, every 1 year or every second year, there's a new technology which is coming in. And the industry itself takes about an year to adapt that new technology. Being the masters in the industry, we ourselves take about an year to adapt that technology to our system. So, like anything, it can be SaaS or now blockchain or IoT, whatever it is. But we are expecting the academy to come up with those new technologies within a span of 2-3 years of that academic duration. So which, I don't know where this innovation comes up suddenly, and then, it takes a lot of time for the academy to, now the technology is changing so fast that by the time they set the syllabus, the technology is already changed and it's obsolete now. So how do you expect academy to be so robust that they go ahead of industry and come up with this new, set of technologies? I think that gap, I think, is very difficult to fill in. But yes, with collaboration, with new, incubation, what he rightly said, we can fill that gap a little. But I feel that definitely revolution or, the technology changes would be there. But we can't expect the academy to be, really up to date and, come up with this, because especially in last 5 years, I see that every 6 months there is a new version coming. Every 6 months there is a new technology coming in. So I think there should be something which, as an industry, we need to build a new ecosystem, to overcome that.
I can respond to that if it's
Can I also, very crisp, it's an easy one actually to solve. It's not complex. You could actually invite Workday, SAP HCM, Freshworks, or any other HR technology firm to run a certification for your students. So all of the versions and all of the platforms that, it could be Oracle HCM, it could be PeopleSoft, whatever you all use, SuccessFactors, ask them to come to university upfront, T-minus 6 months before they graduate. Let them be familiar with all of the modules and all of the screens. So when they come, plug and play. That's really technology, really. So it's everything else they will learn on the job. So in order to help, this could be a simple, tangible solution.
I will be very honest with you. The reason why we are thinking that academic institutions will not be able to learn this at a faster speed because industry is taking so much time to innovate is because we are not creatively thinking about the university system or the system of education per se. I will respond to you a bit more deeper. I don't know, I was in US and I was looking at some very unique curriculum pedagogy innovations in institutions. One university which came up was Duke, right? What they did, they have a 4-year BBA program, right? Typically what happens in a BBA program, student goes to the institution, graduates, gets an internship, turns a placement. No student comes to university. They all go to industry. First 2 years they're not in the university, they go to industry. They go and find out what they have to learn. Next 2 years they come and learn what they have to learn. This is the new program in US. It's called the industry, where's the industry interlinked, intertwined programs. See, we do not want to innovate, right? We think that, oh, you come to school, we'll teach you what you have to learn. No, that you may have to go to the industry and probably learn what you want to learn and come and learn it more effectively. You have to rethink. It's called the flipped classroom also, right? You don't bring students to classroom to teach what is there in the book. You have to bring students to teach how to solve real problems, right? So you have to rethink, re-innovate, and I think that can be possible, and that is happening, and some good institutions are innovating, and we are.
Just to add to that, I work for AWS, so we have our own AWS Academy. So you can definitely sign up for any of the certifications, and the Academy works very closely with so many colleges to upskill candidates, so, and students, of course. So I think it's a win-win partnership, and I just wanted to bring that to you.
Thank you. Any more question? One last question. Yes, I'm so sorry. I said I will allow you to ask a question.
Hi, my name is Adib. I'm representing Decathlon today. So it's something which I would like to share because we've been speaking about the responsibility of an HR. In Decathlon, from the past 10 years, we have no role of an HR. We are 5,000 employees. We have around 110 touch points in India, but we do not function with HR. We have one person with the role of a human happiness leader who shows us a mirror to all the leaders who work in a very subsidiarity mindset to say that this is your performance with your human. So if I'm a leader of my site, I recruit, I decide, and I'm responsible for their, the development and the salaries and their hikes and what's their trajectory for the next 5-10 years. And it's really working well because I know how my teammates work. I know how they perform, and I also can decide who works with me because I'm there recruiting, and this is for all the projects. So this is working really well, and because we're speaking so much about the responsibility of an HR, that's how it works.
We should give a round of applause. Amazing. Okay, let me quickly invite Gaurav, Tanushree ma'am, Soumya, please let's do the honors to all the panelists. A big round of applause to all of them. It's been a great session. I know we have extended by 15 minutes, but still we managed to do it on time. Thank you so much for clubbing both the panel, and we could innovate. I think this is a new upskilling for me, and Soumya, can we have, May I request Professor Tanushree to do the honors? Huh? Keep coming this side, Soumya. I'll also keep doing it fast, faster. Soumya? Yeah. I am the accelerator now. That's for me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My intention is to become something. Thank you. This is the visual scout with all the colors of personal life. Thank you. A lot of it. Thank you. From there. Really. Everybody gets one. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate this. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Just keeps coming.
Yeah. Thanks.
There's a lot of Friday evening goodies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
You have been such a fantastic audience. A round of applause.
No, come here. You want more color. Okay, quickly, just wanted to extend a really short word of thanks. Soumya and Rakesh, can you be here, please? I really owe a lot of respects to my team members, Soumya and Rakesh. I don't think so without them, this event would be possible. They have really worked hard, and I think you would have seen Rakesh coming here week before, planning this event, meeting all of you. Soumya, again, I feel like, she's this lady who comes out and gets everything executed and always calms me down. So thank you so much. On behalf of Vice Chancellor and also Professor Dr. Sanjeev Pisani and also our registrar, I really wanted to thank all of the panelists for being here, and extremely sorry that we have extended our time, but please do join us for dinner, and we will keep writing to you, and let's see how the institution can partner with your industry, and we can create certain curriculum and also mentorship programs. Thank you so much for spending your time. And all the audience, the dinner is there, and I would want to interact with most of you while on the dinner. So please enjoy your dinner. And again, amazing audience. Thank you so much. We now enjoy the Bangalore chapter. Thank you. Did I give you my card? Did I give you my card? Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you. I'll write to you.
We have 4 interns from.
Oh.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming up, and Manasa sends his regards. And yeah, he couldn't make it, but it would have been wonderful. It would have been wonderful. If you could just hold this for a second, please. Thank you so much,
Soumya.
No, thank you so much for coming, ma'am. There was no, what did I even do? But thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.